Hey, everybody. You may have heard by now because we announced this on social media, but on September 24th, we are doing a live show at Flappers in LA. Technically Burbank, though, right, Paige?
Yes, LA adjacent with better parking and good food.
Apparently they have good food. Mikey's promised to eat pasta on stage.
Or
And
wings.
or wings.
Whatever you guys
Or
want.
wings.
I want wings for sure.
Or pasta-covered wings.
What about wing-covered pasta? You know what? We can workshop this later.
We'll figure it out.
Okay. But please, I've never been out that west. I'm excited about it.
You can buy tickets on Flappers' website through their calendar for the 24th in September. Or if you want to go the link directly through the link, we'll be posting it on social media because it is flapperscomedy.com/shows/the-horror-version.
I saw the URL as you were saying it, and I already added it to our link tree type service. So if you go to any of our social media and click on that link that we are allowed to have in our bio of social media, you'll see live show tickets is the very first thing. Just click on that. It'll take you right to it.
And we'll be periodically posting it on social media so that you can catch it and see it. So watch all of our social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc. for links to buy tickets. There are a limited amount of tickets. This is slightly bigger than live shows we've done in the past, but we do still have a limited amount. So I would recommend buying them early and making plans. Also, it is at 5 p.m. on a Sunday. We did that so that if you had to drive from out of town, you might still have time to drive back in time for Monday the next day at work.
Boom. So come see us September 24th at Flappers in LA. It's going to be awesome. And yes, Mikey will be there.
Yes.
The star.
All right, let's get into the episode. Hey, listeners, in this movie, 2 live pigs are killed on screen, and we are forced to talk about it because it happens in the movie. If that bothers you, I completely understand because it bothered me when I watch it. Just avoid that section, or maybe this whole episode, I apologize. It's just a part of the movie, and we had to talk about it. It's a great episode, though. We have a lot of fun, but we'll see you on the other side of it. This episode brought to you by the following patrons: Jay's Pack, Sexcalibur Bones a Lot, James, Madeline, Sunzi, Vixen, Holly, Natasha, Laura, Boeasy, Jeremy, Ali, Mr. Rage Bomb, Libby, Wes, Dreskel, Aaron, Kristen, Tia, Taylor, Lauren, Jonathan, Kate, Isaac, and Karoon. And all the patrons want you to know you're loved, you're listened to, and you're a valuable member of this awesome Horror Virgin community. And if you want to hang out with us, do so in the Facebook group where we hang out daily.
Southern Comfort. There's no fridge here, so I can't keep anything cold. I have to constantly go get ice, and the only glasses are highball glasses. So it's like I feel fancy, but also annoyed.
Fancy but annoyed is how I live my life.
I didn't drink the bottles of water in the hotel because they were $7 a piece.
Really?
You know who gives you free bottles of water? The fucking La Quinta Trash Inn that I spent 2 days at.
Paige is an alcoholic. You see the way he just downed that whole glass of what I assume is vodka because it's in a highball?
That's water. If you hear my glasses and ice clinking around in this episode,
that's because Paige is in such a fancy hotel, she's hired a bartender to sit in her room and make her drinks.
Paige went to Texas and turned into Hunter S. Page.
Thank you for tuning into Horror Virgin. I'm Paige.
I'm Mikey.
And I'm your Horror Virgin Todd, which means I don't like scary movies, but you guys make me watch them. And this week, we watched
Southern Comfort.
Now, Mikey, I know this isn't the first time you've seen it because you love this movie, right?
I do love this.
Yeah.
I love it because, well, for many reasons. One, everybody's kind of an asshole, so you just kind of watch and be like, what are these assholes going to do?
Yeah.
And then, like, I think it's kind of a hidden horror gem where, like, we've watched maybe 100 movies worse than this, but no one's ever seen this film.
I mean, we've done almost 300 movies, so I would say there are probably 100 of them that are worse than this. But yeah, this is not a very often talked about movie.
No.
Like, I had never heard of it until you brought it up saying we should do it.
Yeah, same.
I like it because it's kind of like Deliverance, but like I think it's a little bit more suspenseful because, well, unlike Deliverance where it's like are they really after them or not after them kind of like
No, you're right. I felt that way too in Deliverance.
Schrodinger's redneck kind of situation.
Yeah.
This is more of like, we're being hunted by this like otherworldly, like this culture that we have no idea about, and like they're pretty good at it, and we're like really incompetent.
I feel like they weren't being hunted until they actively fired on them and were like, oh, it's blanks.
100%.
How are they supposed to fucking know that? Like,
Paige,
what?
we are following the villains of the movie, the entire movie. Yeah.
Yeah, we came all the way back around to the hillbillies being the villain, or hillbillies being the heroes in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think the conversation with the one they captured and let go is like the only moment, because like, he spent time with the group and he's like, look, you two are like the least shitheads of the shitheads.
Yes.
Yeah.
So just get out of here. You were nice. Like, you killed Fred Ward for me, you know?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, get on out of here. But like, watching a whole group of like a whole squad of soldiers just break down immediately, and all of the like, and it like happened right after Nam. So I think it's kind of like an allegory of like, hey, the army is not great kind of deal of like, hey, we go to places we don't understand and try to do what we want to do
and recite the manual when that's not helpful.
Yes. And then the local population destroys us.
I really do think this is like okay, what happens when you take like a squad of guys, they commit crimes, and then they're actually held to account for those crimes. And it's really about like sort of the breakdown of those men, not necessarily what they've done, but like the way they like start to turn on each other or just lose their mind. You know, all of that shit I thought was really, really cool. But I do think like the movie sets them up as the bad guys, more or less.
Yeah.
And I do think it's trying to say some stuff about Vietnam that I probably don't fully understand because I was born way after that happened. But I think you're right. I think it is sort of like commentary on that time. And that's why they chose to set it in the bayou, like in the South.
Not only that, it's made in 81 and set in 74.
Yes.
So like it's set even closer to like Vietnam time. And it's like, I think the acting's pretty good, but and like I don't think there's a hero. I think the two main surviving guys are like the most normal of the guys.
I do think they are the ones that aren't shitty soldiers.
Right. And I don't even think they hate the Cajuns. They're just like, our fucking squad got us into this situation and we have to get out.
Yeah.
And I will defend myself to get out, but they're like, fuck, I hate the army.
I mean, Powers Booth kills a soldier to protect the Cajun. Like, I think that Powers Booth and the other guy, whatever his name was.
Spencer.
Yeah, Spencer. I recognize him from...
Isn't he a Carradine brother?
He is. He's Keith Carradine. I just looked it up. His name's Keith Carradine. Yeah, I've seen him in a bunch of other shit. But those two characters, Powers Booth and Keith Carradine, are like good soldiers. They're there doing what they're supposed to be doing, and everyone else loses their fucking mind.
Well, they're not good. Like, Spencer's definitely not a good soldier.
Yeah, they're bad soldiers, but they're good people.
Yeah. I guess that's what I meant. Yeah.
What I like about their arcs is Spencer, has the sex workers waiting for them.
Yes.
And then the other dude is married and happy, and he's like, what the fuck, dude? I just want to go home to my wife and I'm happy married and all this. But then, like, as all the shit goes down, they're like, hey, we're the only two people who might be sane in this situation. We should probably stick together.
Well, and there's sort of opposites in that way that do sort of glue themselves together because, hey, listen, everyone's losing their fucking mind, and we got Captain Sobel leading us through the bayou, so we're gonna have to figure this shit out.
And I just think it's an interesting movie because of that, because like it really doesn't say we're the heroes, and it doesn't say the bayou. Well, it kind of implies that the Cajuns are more the heroes. I think the movie does pretty much say that.
I think so.
And I think it's an interesting way to watch. You're basically in a horror movie watching the villains go through like enemy, like invading a territory.
You are. That is what this is.
And causing destruction on themselves by doing stupid stuff. I love horror movies where like the characters bring the bad out.
It's Tucker and Dale without Tucker and Dale.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, yeah, you're right. Stucky does fucky up here real bad and causes all of this. When he drowns in quicksand or whatever, I was like, good.
I was like, oh, he won't make it through the fire swamp. Great.
Yeah.
Yes. I honestly, I think his death needed to be more vicious.
Yeah.
And I think it's like really funny, but also not funny. That
I don't know, man. Drowning like that scares the shit
That
out of me,
sounds
man.
terrifying.
Like,
as you stare at an army helicopter, think the army's gonna help you.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, look at the metaphor here.
Yeah,
I mean,
good
there was
luck,
no
man.
way for that helicopter to land. Like that.
I mean, this movie basically takes every moment from every famous Vietnam movie and turns it into a horror movie. So that was like his Platoon moment of like, ah.
He's like got his arms up as he's sinking into the.
But and then like the only probably decent soldier was the sergeant, and he gets killed immediately.
Poole? Yeah, Sergeant Poole gets his head shot. Yeah.
Because I think he would have like stopped the boats, went back and talked to them, and like, okay, we've like if someone else got shot, he's like, we fired first. This is a misunderstanding.
Yeah,
we
yeah.
need to like go get the authorities and all. Like, but like
Yeah.
as soon as he's gone, everybody just goes into.
It just descends into madness.
Yeah.
Well, and it also very clearly positions them as like no one there is what I would call like a career soldier.
Right. It's National Guard. Yeah.
It's National Guard, so it's like well, that guy coached football and now he is out to lunch. Like,
Yeah.
Oh,
that
yeah.
dude was like on the edge of a mental break when he went away for the 2 weeks of PT or whatever they have to do every year
Yes.
or whatever. Like he has other shit going on in his life that's causing him to paint a red cross on his chest.
That's one of my favorite scenes in the movie because he goes up to our
Fucking
two main.
nuts.
I don't want to say main character. I guess main characters, the two sane people, and he's like, "Don't you get the reference?" And they just look at each other like, "We got to get the fuck out of here."
No,
Yeah,
we don't get
no,
the
we
reference.
don't.
I mean, I know what the cross symbolizes, but like, why would you put a Christian symbol on your chest and then blow up a shack?
No, and
Yeah.
he's like, "I'm an avenging angel," and they're like, "Oh no."
Oh no.
I did not hate this movie. I thought it was interesting. It was saying interesting things. Was it scary? Not really.
Not really.
The most I like winced and hated it was when they kill pigs live on the screen in this movie.
Same. That upset me quite a bit.
I was like, why did you do this? Although, I mean, and I realized, because Paige, I'm sorry, I looked it up. I had to look it up because it was
I
driving me
did too.
crazy.
Yeah.
So they actually had an animal person on set, like from I forget the name of the association. It's the one that's specifically for film.
Yeah, sure.
They had someone on set. And it was done in accordance with the laws at that time. It's just this has changed. So you could no longer really do this.
Yeah. Oh, you would never be able to do this
But
now.
they did it the way they were supposed to do it at the time. They were, quote, killed humanely on set, which is terrible. That's not what I'm
no,
saying.
thank you.
But at least they went through the requirements at the time. You know, it wasn't like they did this in some other country so they could do it.
Did they use a real Cajun village for that stuff?
I don't know, because I can't imagine it would be super expensive to set up like the 5 shacks that they have in that village.
I think it's set up because he runs through like a maze.
It looks really good. It looks authentic.
The people look very authentic, and then the music was very authentic.
I do think they were authentic.
Yeah, like I think they just hired locals.
Same.
But like I don't think it's a village. Like
Yeah.
I think they built the village.
I don't even know if they hired him. I think it was like, hey, we'll throw you a party if y'all come over here and party.
I mean, that is often what happens. Even today.
The majority of that ending like montage of scenes is largely just like a bayou bash where they're grilling out 2 pigs. Like it did look like a good time. I'm not gonna lie. Music choice could have been turned up. Venue could have been a little nicer, but I sort of dug the vibe.
Wow, you don't like the folk Cajun French music?
I actually don't mind it. So like I would probably spend about 90 minutes there eating their pork and then bouncing.
Yeah, as much as I did not want to see the pigs killed, I bet they tasted amazing.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a sad reality of being a conscious omnivore.
Yeah.
As long as it's like alone and they thank the pig afterwards or whatever the fuck they're trying to do to make it
when
worth it.
that one pig went up to the other pig and shook it and then just screamed.
No,
Sorry.
God.
I seriously will never watch Alone again because that squirrel scene.
Yeah,
like,
no thanks.
fuck, that was brutal. Anyway, sorry, that's a throwback to our last episode, I think.
I eat enough meat where I have to be like, for me to do this, someone's getting murdered and I have to like come to terms with that.
Wait, so like every burger you have to murder someone to eat it? I think you're doing meat eating wrong.
Someone murdered that burger?
No, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, like
Here's the thing. I don't have a problem with them killing the squirrel because they do need to survive, and that's a reality. Although they did just apply to to do it on a TV show, so they don't have to kill the squirrel, but you get it. What I don't love is the way that they filmed it and shot it and exploited it on the TV show. That seems unnecessary.
My heart, Paige. Yes.
It's okay. When they did it to a beaver, the beaver got him. It made him so sick he had to radio out.
They call that the Beaver's Revenge, which honestly was a alternate title for the movie Teeth.
Yeah.
Eat Strange and Beaver makes you sick. That's all I'm saying.
So this was my first time seeing this movie.
Yeah, mine too.
I think I prefer Deliverance, personally.
Oh, really? I think I prefer this. Deliverance is prettier. Like, it's a prettier venue, I guess.
It's a prettier venue. I think for me, the pacing is just as bad.
In this?
In both movies.
Oh, it is. Yeah, I think the pacing is pretty trash in this.
This movie unfolds like a Tolkien book where every 5 to 10 minutes we have to watch them walk for 20 minutes, and it's maddening.
Yeah, it's not like anybody likes any of that Tolkien stuff.
No, but I mean, like, just watching people walk for way too long.
That's literally the entire first movie, Paige.
I know.
That's like Fellowship.
The book is way worse about that.
Yeah, the
You're
book
right.
is way worse about it. And I would criticize it in that movie too, although I know that it's a source material issue. But in this movie, I was like, between the amount of time that we watch them walking through terrain that looks the fucking same.
It is the same. Like, the bayou looks like that. Yeah.
And the amount of time that the Cajun Party and Killings Within takes was interminable. Like,
Paige,
oh my God.
100%. I paused it when they got to the little bayou village, if you will.
Yes.
And there was like 15 minutes left.
18 minutes left.
Yeah. It was like right around there to the end of the movie. I was like, cool, we have like maybe at most 10 minutes of movie left or 13 minutes of movie left.
And then a ton of credits or something like
there
that.
are credits, right? So you're like, okay, it's not much longer.
20 minutes of movie.
It's like the credits are like the last 20 seconds of it. Like, it's the whole 18 minutes were there doing almost nothing.
Nothing.
And I do think they could have trimmed it down by about 20. Well, but that's our podcast, I think, main complaint about most movies we see. I think now that we have to watch a lot of movies like this, it's like, hey, trim that 20 minutes down of like needless transitions and like just go scene to scene.
Here's the thing. It's more than 20 minutes because it is at least 15 minutes of just that end scene could just go. Immediately gone, including the pigs, gone, right? If you cut down every time they're walking for no reason and no one has any lines, no one sees anything, they're just walking through the swamp, the same ass swamp that we've seen them walk through 4 other times, you would cut 40 minutes out of this movie and it would be an hour long.
Yeah.
Because there's only literally an hour's worth of story that happens in this movie.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see my notes, but it's way shorter than normal notes.
My notes are 10 pages shorter than normal.
Yeah, but Paige, it does have Lord of the Rings vibes, especially when the Ents attack them for literally no reason.
I wrote that in my notes too. The Ents attack. Here's the thing, though. I do like the correlation with Vietnam. I do think it's accurate correlation.
Yeah.
I do think it plays out well, and I do like that we really are watching their incompetence be the villain, if you want to think of it that way.
I do want to think of it that way, Paige.
And not just incompetence, but like their lack of empathy for people who live there.
Like carelessness and lack of empathy. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think this movie should have had a resurgence during Iraq and Afghanistan.
I would actually want to see a modern version of this, is what I think.
I would 1000% watch a modern version of this set in like Arizona or some shit like that.
That's exactly what I was thinking of. Like Arizona, either with cartels or with something like, or just with locals don't speak English, like whatever it is.
What if they're doing army exercises and they like wander to a reservation and kill some indigenous and then they start hunting?
Yes. I feel like if you did it today, it would be cut tighter. It would be cut a lot tighter.
Yeah.
There would be a little bit more, because one of the other problems with this, and it's a problem with Deliverance too, is that we have gotten a lot better about sound mixing and editing dialogue.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
So much better. And so much of this dialogue is missed. Like, even if you have subtitles on, it's all over the place, and it's hard to understand why people are talking about stuff, who they're talking to.
Yeah.
It doesn't really fit. And I think if you did it today, it would be cut tighter. Your dialogue would be more impactful, and you would get a lot more of who the characters are and why.
Because when you hear them or when you're reading it, I do feel like those are the the shining parts of the movie. Their interactions is when the movie kind of shines.
Only some of them. I would say it's half and half, because I think Powers Booth and Keith Carradine, yes. And it's absolutely, they are your audience analog to the movie.
Mm-hmm. They absolutely are. There you're in.
But I like watching the other people losing it.
Me too. That's the part of the movie I like. But there's a lot in this movie where we're not watching Powers Booth and Keith Carradine talk, and we're not watching the other people lose their minds. It's just like them walking and wondering.
Well, but here's the other thing. When the other people are losing their minds, the dialogue is so scattered and so hard to hear and hard to follow. It's tough to invest as much as you do in Powers Booth and Keith Carradine, who, again, because they're your audience analog, you're aligned with them and you're like, yes, we're all together on this. You're like, you should kill, you should kill Fred Ward. But like, what I think we would get modern day is a lot more of who the others are, and probably typified stereotypes within them, where like, here's the kid who was raised hunting, pro-gun, super right-wing.
Yeah.
Here's the kid who joined because he needed college money, but maybe isn't aligned with what this is. And you would get a lot more of like who those people were, and I think it would inform it a little bit more. So like, I would want to see a modern day version of this. I think I would like a modern day version a lot better.
Yeah.
And I think if it was a bigger movie, we would have gotten it. I just think it's an interesting concept.
Well, I mean, honestly, as a concept, we could just cut that and we could write the movie. And like, it wouldn't be a quote unquote remake. It would just be a ripoff.
Southeastern Comfort.
Southwestern Comfort. Yeah. Well, maybe we should go through this movie scene by scene.
Sure.
Let's do it.
We open in Louisiana, 1973, on a National Guard base, or rather, the Louisiana National Guard.
Yeah.
Which is probably ranked 48th or 49th in National Guards, behind Mississippi and Alabama.
The first 20 minutes of this movie are a lot about, like, I disagree with the Louisiana. And I was like, I don't understand. I don't have any context. I don't know why anyone cares. But when you think about it in the sense of, like, thinking about it from Vietnam points of view, it makes a lot more sense. So you're like, yes.
But they're talking about shit like they can go be mercenaries in Latin America for $1,300 a month or whatever. Like,
yeah,
whatever. That's honestly not a lot. That would be like $4,300 today. Like, that's not bad, but that's not a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, but if you choose to just live down there, it goes further.
I'm sure that's true. You're right.
But yes, initially I kind of felt like I was like, why are they treating this like the real army?
Well, I mean, these guys are in the National Guard. They do have training, and they're in that time where they're like playing as soldier to get training to keep them like, combat ready or whatever it's called.
Yeah. And I also could not figure out why they were firing literally directly at people and nothing was happening.
Because they were shooting blanks.
And it took me, because no one has said anything until later that they were like shooting blanks. And I was like, why the fuck? And then I was like, why the fuck did we give them blanks? And then you see how crazy they get later, and you're like, that's why.
Yeah.
Because the dude who's like the colonel of the National Guard's like, we'll never give them live ammunition.
Yeah, fucking never.
Until we like unleash them on a country. We're not doing that.
Right. Well, and I think that was the other part that I found confusing as well, because I am not a military person. I don't usually love war movies. So I couldn't figure out why they were taking all of this so seriously. Just in general, where they're like, we're going to go on this thing and do that. And I was like, why? What?
Because it's their job. Like, they are being paid to be there.
Yeah, I was like, who the fuck cares about their job that much?
Okay, so when it comes to training for like police officers, firefighters, the army and stuff like that, like the more realistic you make it, the training. So like firefighters fight real fires.
Sure,
they light stuff on fire, and police, they have like blank rounds too and stuff like that. And then the army, they send them out with blank rounds. They do maneuvers and stuff. Stress inoculation. So like when you actually get in there, you experience like what it is realistically so you can perform. And then also like the army is a bit serious.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
But the more realistic you act, if you ever get deployed, the better you are.
the better you'll perform, for sure.
I think for me, and this is why they turn on Casper, and deservedly so, because at a certain point in this movie, it becomes very clear that, like, oh no, shit is real now, and this is no longer army play. Like, now we gotta, like, do it. And he's like, well, the manual says, and I'm just like,
yes.
Fuck off. Like, I'll stab you to stay alive if I need to. This is why I can't be in the armed services.
Well, then he tries to keep him on.
Yeah, he's trying to keep them on mission, but there's a time to abandon the mission, and he does not do it.
The time to abandon the mission is immediately. Like when
Yes.
Captain Poole or whatever his name was got shot, immediately we are walking back to base. We're not pushing through, you idiot. That's why I called him Captain Sobel the whole time.
He's so stupid, yeah.
He's like, we'll just do the mission. I'm like, and the other guys are like, let's go to the highway and get help.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I get I think the more realistic argument was like abandoning the body or not.
Absolutely abandon the body. Hey, if I somehow have a stroke and decide to go out into the woods with you guys and die, leave my body and find safety. I'm telling you now, I won't be sad about it.
Me either. Like, I would prefer you get safe and
absolutely.
then send proper authorities to recover me.
Yep.
If I'm leaving a body for people to come back and find it later, I'm definitely not burying it there because that's such a waste of calories.
Yes.
Man, you watch Alone and like study it, man.
Todd, I felt the same way when they were burying people, and I was like, guys, you are in danger.
And they're like, we're out of daylight. And I'm like, idiots.
Keep moving.
Yeah.
It is the fucking swamp. They are gone. They are dead. Maybe we just have empty coffins. Either way, we got to get back alive.
Yeah.
There's one big thing missing from this movie, and that is gators.
Yeah.
Gators, motherfucker. Like, as dangerous as the Cajuns.
And they're definitely going to need, legal help when they get out of here. So they're going to need that gator lawyer.
That litigator.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, we hadn't even gotten to that point. They're still on the base. This is their attempt to to give an introduction to everyone, and it doesn't help you at all. Like, you're like, I didn't catch anyone's names. I got excited that Knowles from The Thing was in this, and I completely lost the track. And then you hear a couple of drops of the N-word, and you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
No. I can't tell if I should have been listening closer or not listening closer.
And the thing about it is it's like casual. It's not like they're yelling at somebody. Not that it's ever okay to use it. It's just weird to hear it used so casually.
At him.
Yes.
And to not have him slap that person senseless.
Oh, yeah.
It's definitely like, times have changed. Good for times.
It was one of those moments for me. I was like, oh, this would never fly today.
But I mean, like, I don't know what happens in the Army or the National Guard and stuff, but I hear that they use a lot of colorful language, and that's a really downplaying of that.
I don't like it. Oh, I do like when Spencer in this moment, because this is where you find out kind of why Spencer is not super a fan of the Army, where he's like, oh yeah, no, they're just training us so that we can beat up on college kids and tear gas people of color.
Yeah.
Like, that is what it is.
But at the time, he's very realistic of like what the Army is in America in 1974.
Well, and the National Guard, man. That was like, the National Guard was who attacked the protesters at that Republican National Convention in Chicago.
Well,
I love a healthy cynicism in a soldier. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
That's...
Definitely.
Let's not forget that the National Guard was not great to protesters in 2020.
Yeah.
When George Floyd died. So, like, it's not like it's a fixed problem.
No,
like,
I mean, it seems like it's a national institution of oppression.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and then, even if you're like Spencer, where you're like, fuck this, like, if you don't follow your orders, you're arrested and thrown in jail for a very long time.
Yeah. And don't follow your orders in a situation in which your orders are counterintuitive, dangerous, and could get people killed. Because when Spencer is not wanting to follow orders later in this movie, it's not just because he's a fucking hotshot. He's like, we're going to die. And I want to try and have the least amount of us die as possible.
Yeah.
Because this mission is fucking fake.
Yes.
And we just need to live. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, when war games become actual war, if you're not prepared for actual war, you just have to get the fuck out of there.
Right.
And I like the allegory of like Vietnam of being like, okay, one guy's like, this is kind of bullshit, and I'm just gonna go along with it, and then eventually the other guy's like, I'm gonna get out of here no matter what. I don't give a fuck about anything anymore except living and going home.
Yeah, I will kill anybody to get out of here, basically.
Yeah.
Fuck the orders. If the sergeant doesn't care about my life, I'm not doing it.
and again, this is why I can't be in the armed services at all, because that's me day one. Or I'm like, nope, I've got too strong a sense of survival.
Yeah.
I will run. I don't care.
I'm too selfish to join the armed services. Like that, I was honest with myself when I was younger. I was like, I'm never going to be able to do that. So I just won't.
Oh, yeah.
Here's why this works more, because in Nam, they were like,
they were drafted.
Yeah.
Because if you were rich, you didn't have to do it.
And so you'd be over there like, fuck this. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Which for the record is the same way it is now. It's just that.
Yeah, it's no different.
Yeah, it's instead of a draft, it's if anyone ever wants to move a social class, a lot of them have to go into the armed services and kill people or potentially die themselves to be able to go to college to then elevate themselves out of the lower social class.
Or you could join the Coast Guard.
Oh, that's a real rich guy move, though, because that's like George Bush did that, right? Like, yeah.
It's the yacht of the armed services. A guy I went to high school. So I graduated from high school just a couple years out of 9/11. So after 9/11. So like a ton of the people I went to high school went into the armed services because A, money, B, patriotism.
Patriotism.
Whatever.
Yeah, 9/11, man.
Yeah. And so it was really funny coming back from the 10-year reunion and running into the one guy who joined the Coast Guard who's like, yeah, I work with computers now. It's pretty nice. I've got a like sizable retirement. We just bought a house. I was just like, oh, all right. I see how it is.
Coast Guard's where it's at.
Yeah. Oh, none of the other armed services guys showed up. They're either still in or they're like, yeah, I don't like to talk about it. You're like, yeah, no shit.
Yeah. But like where we are in the plot, this is where we learn, like the very beginning of the movie, this is where we learn that Stucky is an idiot psychopath.
Yes.
Because even at the base, he turns with his like M60 machine gun and shoots at other soldiers, and this is where we learn that they are blanks. And he is doing a quote-unquote joke, question mark?
Toxic masculinity is not a great thing.
As we've learned from Alec Baldwin, A, never assume they're blanks. B, don't point guns at people you don't intend to shoot.
Exactly.
That's trigger discipline.
Yeah.
But I mean, and hey, also, you should also not have live rounds in prop guns in general on a set. You should never.
All of the John Wick movies, 0 of them have real guns on set.
Yeah, none of them.
You don't need it.
You don't need it. But also, if you are dealing with real guns, A, it's impossible for someone to know if you're shooting blanks before you do.
Right?
B, that's fucking terrifying. You should treat every gun as if it could kill you, because they can most of the time. So to fake people out like this is irresponsible at best.
I would have walked over there and gotten my ass beat because I would have punched him right in the face, and that would not have gone well for a small guy like me. But that is someone who deserves being punched in the face and honestly kicked out of the military for fucking ever. Like that is such a blatant disregard for like what we're there to do. I was like, oh, they still let this sociopath go on the trip with them? Like what is wrong with the National Guard in this movie?
He's in their squad.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, National Guard is like, it's not even Army. It's like the level below. You know, it's like...
Are they not a part of the Army? And I don't know. I have no idea.
So, the regular Army is a national force.
Yes.
Where you join up, your station places, it's like you're in for 2 years, that kind of thing.
So the National Guard is like the state level force that reports to the governor.
Which the federal government can call up to deploy a National Guard unit, but also the governor can also deploy it in its own state if it needs to, I think.
And that's typically how it gets used to suppress protests.
Yes.
Is the governor is like, hey, we don't want women to have full rights, so go beat up those people who are protesting for that.
In the Iraq and Afghanistan war, they did deploy some out overseas and stuff because they needed soldiers. But really, it's like you have a full-time job. It's like 2 weeks a year you get deployed. Your job can't fire you when you're deployed, blah, blah, blah. But like they're not as regulated and well-trained. Like if you remember Generation Kill, did you guys watch that?
I did, yeah.
When they ran into the National Guard unit.
Yes.
And they were like, oh, that's bad people. That's not good.
Yeah.
Weekend Warriors.
So this was a huge thing in Los Angeles and during pandemic when there were protests where people turned on the mayor for calling the National Guard. They were like, how fucking dare you? And then people protested the fact that they had called the National Guard.
Good.
Yes, that's how we do. But it was because of that. It was because, the protests were about police brutality and a lack of oversight into the basically militarized force at this point that's supposed to be protecting and serving and is not, and is in fact causing harm. And now you've called in weekend warriors with even less training who are going to cause more harm.
Well, and then also the army is built to just cause harm.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's like, for the crime of protesting, you've given your citizenry the 5-star level in Grand Theft Auto. Like, that's an overreaction to a protest.
Yes.
Anyway, but this is where we realize Stucky's a fucking idiot, and then we sort of go about the training mission that they're going on.
And we also got to think about states. So not only does each state have its National Guard, some states are worse than others. And generally the ones that rank last are like Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Tennessee.
Oh, yeah, they're the ones that typically rank last in education.
Well, okay, but this is also... we can't dig too far into this. It's going to take forever. It's a class issue as well.
It is.
Because states that have more money, that are air quotes donor states, have more resources at their disposal than states that are maybe constantly receiving federal aid because they don't generate enough funds on their own to fund those programs, which creates a disparate levels of support for those services across the country.
Yeah.
Very complicated. We can't talk about it all day. It would take forever. Yeah.
All that to say that Louisiana National Guard in 1974 is like, let's make dumb grunts.
Yeah. Oh, well, and they say that in this movie a bunch, where he's like, these people are not trained, because they've got somebody from Texas. And so at this point, him coming from Texas that probably had a pretty robust National Guard, I would say, he's looking at these people like, oh no, this is, what did I get myself into?
Yeah, that's Powers Booth character. Yeah, he is very skeptical of this crew very early on.
Immediately, yeah.
He's like, that psycho just shot blanks at people and you're letting him come with us. You guys suck at National Guarding.
Well, I liked his conversation with Spencer around this time where he's like, what do you think? He's like, dumb rednecks or dumb rednecks, Tennessee or Louisiana. I mean, Texas, Louisiana. He's like, I've dealt with their kind before.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think he raises concerns along the way where he's like, I've dealt with these kind, but they don't usually put them in charge. What?
And we do find they're going I think it was 38 kilometers.
38 kilometers.
That's almost a marathon. That's 23.6 miles. I looked it up. So that's a long hike with military gear through the water bayou,
Yeah.
Well, it's not supposed to be the water bayou.
Right, but it is. I mean, realistically, it becomes that. So, they're trying to go a very far distance.
Well, let's dig into it, because we immediately jump into the mission, and they're walking and walking and walking, and their sergeant gets to a point where there's water where there shouldn't be. So he's like, either the map is wrong, or I don't know where I'm going. Either way, something has gone wrong and there's water where it shouldn't be. And he basically says that the rain that they got may have flooded this portion.
Yeah.
And it's so deep that they cannot cross. They can't walk across. Now, at that point, he sends a few people down the river, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, down the water's edge.
Right. But as they're doing that, because he does say, he's like, either they can find a place to cross or we have to turn around and go back, because that's what you should do, basically.
And this guy's he's like a decorated soldier. He's got like a Bronze Star, and he was a Vietnam vet.
He was in Nam. They actually talk about it.
But he is just a staff sergeant, right?
I think he's just a staff sergeant, but here's what I appreciate about him, because he's like, yeah, if we can't cross, we got to go back. And basically this is a fake mission anyway.
Yeah.
So
I think that's what it was like. He was like, we got, either I don't know what I'm doing, or we hit something on the map that's not there, because, the water shifted or whatever. I think is what it is.
Yeah.
And so we're going to go back and figure that out, because, at the end of the day, no one's going to die if we don't do the mission correctly, right?
Right. Exactly.
So I think the staff sergeant, had he lived, would have resolved all the issues in this movie.
Yeah, I think he would have just taken them home. But what happens is they find canoes, abandoned canoes.
Well, and the boys are all jacked up with the promise of sex workers.
Well, you know how that happens.
Hey.
I mean, yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
Yeah. But a bunch of them hop into the canoes, and the sergeant initially is like, we maybe probably shouldn't do this.
Yeah.
But they agree to leave a note, just like Gene Parmesan said.
Well, they do run into that one-armed guy in a little bit in this movie. So, like, yeah, he really does drive the point home.
I mean, my favorite scene is when they're yelling, "We left a note!"
I did think that was hilarious.
We left a note to people who clearly don't speak English.
And of course they speak English. Like, we do find out at the very end, at least that
Later.
one does speak English.
They speak some English.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, like, they probably heard what they were saying. And, like, I think it would have been fine had Stucky not then shot at them with his M60 machine gun. Because, again, and I feel like a lot of people who think they're funny but aren't funny because they don't know that the person receiving the quote joke has to have the context to understand the punchline. So Stucky in his mind is making a joke by shooting blanks at them, but they have no way to know that they're blanks. So they think that they're being fired on.
Being shot at.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and this again, you hit the nail on the head. This goes for any joke.
Yes.
So I get somewhere between 20 and 100 at minimum a day DMs of memes, and I maybe understand 7 of them.
Right.
Where it's just like, here's the thing, and I'm like, I don't know why you're sending this to me. I don't know what the context is. If it's something that like I talked about on a show, I get that. Like, obviously.
Sure,
but,
because you said that. You have context for it.
Because I said it. I have context for it.
Yeah.
But I get so many just random ones where people were just like, ha ha ha. And I'm like, I don't understand. I don't know. And so I can't respond or whatever. But that's these people, except it's bullets. Bullets.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, the worst thing that happens to me is I just like keep scrolling. But like, these people, bullets.
Bullets, baby.
So many bullets.
Yes.
Now I'll give it to him. It was funny to see him dive for a second, but then they also had guns.
Yeah.
Well, and they had real guns. And that's the other thing too, because I'm like, I don't know why he thought people would realize it was blanks. Obviously, if he hadn't shot, I suspect that the sergeant would have taken one of those canoes, the one he was in, over to them and been like, hey, we just need to use these to get across. Does one of you want, or a couple of you want to come with us to row the canoes back? Like,
exactly. We will pay you for your time. That kind of shit.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Like, I do think had the staff sergeant lived because Stucky didn't fire at them, then he would have resolved the situation and it would have been fine. Because the staff sergeant does seem, and he's not in the movie very much, but he does seem very competent. Like, to the point where when he gets to the bayou lake area, when he's like, hey, either I can't read a map or the water shifted, I believe the water shifted. I think he can read a map. You know, like, he seems very competent.
I also think he would have resolved it if someone else got shot. I think he would have like held up his hands and went over there and been like, they fired blanks. We are so sorry.
I think that would have escalated the issue to the point where they have to stop the mission.
Yeah.
But yes, I don't think that they would have then ferried them over to the other side of the Bayou Lake area thing. They would have gone over there and just like, okay.
We need to go to the authorities. He fired blanks at you. You shot back and killed one of our men. It's a misunderstanding.
Yeah, and then it would get released in the papers and on TV that, Private Stucky was killed in a friendly fire accident is what they would call this.
Private Stucky court-martialed for firing a gun at civilians.
Yeah. Well, that's what it should be. In my mind, it was that he was the one that got killed.
Never. It's probably somebody else.
It was Powers Booth.
Oh,
fucking love
his
Powers
head is
Booth.
A full rectangle.
Powers Booth has the best name of any actor I've ever heard.
He does. He also looks like if Sam the Eagle was a person, like the Muppet puppet.
Yes.
Like if he was a person.
Wait, I have a question. How old do you think he is in this movie?
Ooh.
Powers Booth, that is.
I gotta say he's in his 40s in this movie.
Mikey, how old do you think Powers Booth is in this movie?
34, 35.
Damn, Mikey's guess was closer. He's 33. But
holy shit, he looks terrible.
He does.
Oh my
That's
God,
why
I'm so
I said
sorry.
that, because I was like, holy shit, a 50-year-old Powers Booth is out here running around in these woods. And it wasn't. It was a 33-year-old, 50-looking Powers Booth running around in these woods.
Let me tell you, I went to my 20-year reunion, okay?
Yeah.
Like, most people who are 35 look about 50 at this if you have a ton of like weird choices in your life. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true.
It's wild though, because he looks like he did in the movie Frailty to me. in this movie. And that movie was like mid to late 90s.
Look, some people just come out the womb looking old as fuck, and he may be
That's
one
true.
of those.
He might be one of those.
Steve Martin has been old Steve Martin for like
Yes!
54 years.
Do you guys know who Paula Pell is?
Yes.
She has looked like a 45-year-old woman for 20 years.
40 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
I love her. She's so great. And like, if you don't know
wonderful.
her name, if you saw her, you'd be like, oh, I recognize her.
Not only would you be like, oh, I recognize her, you should know that she has written every funny thing you've loved
Yes.
for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
It's
And
crazy.
she was in Girls 5 Eva, which is one of my favorite recent TV
I love that.
shows. Anyway, so she's great, but she has always looked 50. So maybe she's the woman version of Powers Booth today.
Yeah. She and Tina Fey are about the same age and look 20 years different.
Yeah, I just looked it up. She's actually 60. Paula Pell's actually 60,
Yeah.
which I don't think she looks 60. I think she looks like 45,
No.
50.
She looks like 40.
Yeah, but she's always looked 45, 50.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so if you're one of those people that just came out of the womb looking old, them Powers Booth motherfuckers, you just have to stay looking that age until you're past that age.
Yeah,
and then,
then you're
then
good.
you win on the other side.
But Powers Booth and Paula Pell, you're in good company.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Hey, Powers Booth ended up looking like the dad from Powerpuff Girls because he just stays being a full rectangle for his entire life.
There's worse looks.
There are.
There are worse looks. Sam the Eagle, very distinguished.
We got to move on.
Wait, did the sergeant get shot yet, or what are we talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, the sergeant just got shot. Do you think they designed Sam the Eagle after Powers Booth's head?
They should have.
Yes. I just hate that his great-great-grandfather killed Lincoln.
John Wilkes?
Actually, John Wilkes, he had a second middle name. It was John Wilkes Powers Booth. Like, he's named after...
John Wilkes Booth is his full name.
John Wilkes Max Powers Booth.
No, I know, Mikey, he is a Booth. You're right. He might be related.
They may very well
And-
be related because the Booths were actors.
I know, I was
Yeah.
going to say, he's in the family business, the Booth family
Nepo
business.
baby.
Nepo baby.
This brings me to my theory that Kennedy was killed by Powers Booth. Like, he was around at the time.
Oh
He
my
was on the grassy knoll. It runs in the family to be president assassinators. Like, come on.
Better question. Do you think Powers Booth's mom survived the childbirth? Because his head has full corners.
I just think she has a very square vagina.
she's part wombat. Don't worry about it.
You open her legs and it's like one of those
Those shape things.
those
where you-
Play-Doh shaped things.
Oh
and it
my
just-
God.
Why did our brains go to the same place? Anyway, the sergeant gets shot, and they immediately tip all the canoes.
Oh, they fucking panic
No!
way worse than Deliverance, where they're like, okay, everybody dive off.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which means that now they don't have a map or a radio, and all their guns are waterlogged.
Yeah, yeah.
Oops. Anyway, they all end up on the other shore, and Fred Ward is like, I'm gonna go check some shit out, because Fred Ward is another one of those people who has looked old forever and has looked like a mercenary for his entire life.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
Fred Ward. He's not
Same.
great in this movie, but
This is a bad haircut for Fred Ward, because with a good haircut, I'm into Fred Ward. I get it.
Oh, Fred Ward's awesome.
like Fred Ward from Tremors, Paige?
yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah.
I also like
Yeah.
Fred Ward in like an evil kind of character vibe. This
Yeah.
is
Like
a
this,
change of
he
pace.
does
He's
a
a
great
great
job in
villain.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a great actor.
I honestly, I feel like they kind of shot their shot a little early on his plot line. I think that should have.
Yeah.
I think that should have been more towards the end of them killing Fred Ward.
I mean, he really could have been a much more imposing, scary figure much longer
Yeah.
than he was. Because he only really gets to full, like, super Psycho Saiyan, like, right before he dies. We don't get any
Yes.
dread from him being fully crazy.
Well, and what I want from him is so you know how sometimes there are famous people and then a younger famous person comes up that looks kind of like them and you're just like clones?
Like the Margot Robbies?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
John Bernthal.
Oh, he does have a Fred Ward
he
vibe.
does.
And what I want is John Bernthal from Walking Dead as Shane, where it's that creeping dread of like, I need to be in control. I
Yeah.
make the decisions. And that's what I wanted from Fred Ward in this, because he doesn't really make a play to be the leader. He is just kind of like a wild card through most of this movie. But I think if he had made a play to be the leader, it would have really divided the group, and that would have been very scary.
Yeah, it would have been.
Yeah. He would have been Marcia Gay Harden in the grocery store.
Yes.
Like, that's what we would have gotten.
Yeah.
And it's Fred Ward, so, like, always give him more screen time.
Absolutely.
Anyway, Fred Ward goes, and he immediately, like, gets all of the blanks out of his gun, refills his magazine with live ammunition.
Because he brought live ammo with him, which I'm sure they're not allowed to do, but who cares?
No.
Yeah.
Chambers around, and he's, like, ready to shoot people. And you're like, oh, no. But he comes back, and he's like, yeah, I couldn't find them. And now Casper is in charge.
Yeah, Casper's I think he's a sergeant, but he was the one that was directly reporting to the staff sergeant.
Right, and because he's, quote, got the stripes. And he's like, well, we're just going to finish the mission. And I was like, I'm sorry, someone's dead. This mission was fake to begin with, and now it's definitely over.
Oh, yeah.
And not just Paige said that. Half of the soldiers were like, what the fuck?
Yeah. I mean, I would absolutely just leave. I'd be like, no, we're not continuing the mission.
Yeah.
The staff sergeant's dead. This is a training exercise. We're going back to base. Shut the fuck up, Casper.
Yeah. And everyone is mad at Stucky because he was like, it was a joke. And it's like, how would they know? How would they know? Like,
yeah. But Stucky is doing that like bully thing when they get in trouble. He's like, no, it was just jokes. It was a prank, bro.
He went too far.
Yeah.
Anyway, they decide that they're going to continue, and thus begins the Tolkien-ness of this film.
Yeah.
Walking, more walking.
And we're getting conversations between like Coach, who is about to go crazy, and
Coach is fucking nuts.
Yeah, Coach is insane.
I like Coach's unhingedness.
I wish we'd gotten more crazy shit from Coach, because at
Me
a certain
too.
point he goes catatonic, and I was like, aw.
We get shit like him talking to, I can't remember his name in the movie, but it's TK Carter.
Yeah.
About like their high school teams or whatever. And like
Yeah.
TK is like, hey, I make most of my money selling weed to high school students. And then the guy's like,
Which-
you better not. It's shit like that.
It's so, I hated that.
Yeah.
I hated that because I was like, either this is an attempt at a subversive joke for TK Carter to be like, this is what you think of me.
Yes. I tend to think it's not, because this movie came out in 1981.
Yeah, because this movie came out in 81. Instead, it is stereotyping the one character of color as both a drug dealer and a pimp, who then just joined the National Guard for some reason. I was like, do they give you 2 weeks off pimping?
Aren't there 2 people of color in the squad?
I am not sure about the other
Yeah,
one.
Franklin Seals is the other gentleman
Of color?
that is, but I don't know what race he is. I feel weird talking about it, honestly. Like,
It's not established in the movie, let's put it that way, where TK Carter is othered because of his race.
Yes.
And the other soldier is not. So the movie makes a point of talking about TK Carter's race.
Which again, I think the way that the squad treats him is also goes back to like the Vietnam allegory.
Yeah.
Of like, that's how they treated a lot of grunts of people of color, of like, you run point, and he's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, when we get there. But like, I feel like he is treated like that.
Yeah. Because they're like, we're willing to let you get shot because to us, you matter the least. Yeah.
Yes.
so I just looked
Yeah.
it up. Franklin Seals is English, Scottish, African, Portuguese, and Native Caribbean descent.
So he is mixed.
That was my second guess.
Yeah.
Well, in Louisiana, that could represent someone who is Creole.
Yes.
Mhm.
But they don't talk about
They
it. The
don't.
soldiers don't talk about it.
Yeah.
So we don't know for sure.
But I'm very glad I was just able to access Franklin Sears 23andMe, apparently.
Yeah, you're welcome. And again, it's one of those things where knowing that the movie was trying to be allegorical to Vietnam, I think there's some debate about like, are they doing this to make a point, or is it just the 80s?
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't feel like they're trying to make a point because it's not well written, I guess. Or maybe just not telegraphed in a way that I, with my modern day sensibilities, would understand.
I
Yes.
felt like he was being sarcastic, but like I've been fucking with the other guys.
I felt like if this was written today, it would be more telegraphed that he was being sarcastic and being like, this is what you think of me. Like,
Yeah.
this is what you expect of someone like me, whether it is true or not. But this movie's not as clear about
Yeah, I wish TK had delivered those lines more sarcastically, I think, because I
read them as sarcastic.
didn't. I
Because
wish I did, though, because I didn't like that part.
I did. Here's the thing. I still didn't like it.
Yeah.
It's not as clear. But I do think TK's delivery, he really leans into like a vocal affect that we do not see him use for the rest of the movie, really.
We don't. You're right. Okay.
He leans into it. And I think in some ways that's him being like, oh, so you came to confront the black guy about smoking weed, which first of all, people have died. Everyone could use some weed right now.
Yeah.
But you're going to ask me what I do, and the assumption would be this, even though that is completely unrealistic given where I am right now. Like, clearly this is my job.
Well, and he is sort of making fun of the coach because his team was like 3-8 or whatever.
Yes.
And when he's talking about the students he sells to at whatever high school he mentions, he was like, yeah, they went 10-0, baby.
I do love that.
I mean,
that did make me laugh really hard.
He is sort of fucking with coach, which I do sort of like. That's why I like Dauber so much. So, okay, I'm probably going to cut this section, which is why I paused before I started talking about it. Do you think they don't treat Franklin's soldier character in this movie as poorly as they treat TK's soldier in this movie because TK is darker than Franklin is?
Yes, I definitely think that.
I got that vibe, too.
I think it's more...
And I think you can leave this in, Todd.
Okay.
I think
you
it's
can leave it in.
very clearly demonstrated in the film.
I think so, too. I think they're pointing that out.
And it mostly comes from the by-the-book sergeant who's now in command, represents the incompetence and yet unflexibility and also biasness of like the army machine or whatever. And I think he's the one who leads a lot of that way of like, you take point, don't argue or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely think so.
Okay. We haven't quite seen that yet, but it happens throughout the whole movie, more or less.
We have kind of seen it. We kind of glossed over it because we jumped into the mission. But when he's establishing who's going to do the mission, everyone else is commenting and laughing about the mission. I forget his character's name. I want to call him Knowles because that's his character in the thing. But TK Carter, he makes a comment. Everyone else is. He's not out of line. And the sergeant is like, great, so you set the pace. Like, you take point. You're in front.
Yeah.
Like, he gets punished for something that everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
And so it's from Jump Street. He is othered and frequently referred to as the N-word in this movie.
He specifically is. Yeah.
Yes.
Which I think we should be clear. This is all terrible either way. Like, we're not saying this sort of thing is okay.
No.
It's terrible. It was just interesting to me that they are treating Franklin better than they treat TK.
They do.
I think it is intentional. I think it's definitely written as a Vietnam allegory intentionally.
Yeah. I think the question is this intentional to show how bad it was, or is this intentional at the time to align with how bad it was? And I think that's kind of the difference. You know, is it them saying this is terrible, this is how people were treated?
Sure.
Potentially, I think you could make an argument for that. Or is it them being like, well, this is how it would be, you know? So
So what you're saying is, were they doing this to be sort of woke, if you will, for the time? Or were they doing this because this is just the way it was done at the time?
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
that's my question.
Those are two very different things. And I can't speak for the 80s. I wasn't alive for a lot of them, so.
I want to be optimistic and think, because of the nuanced allegory, that they are being purposeful on this.
Sure.
I think there are other things that might suggest that. And I do look at the performance where he does take on that affect as maybe sarcasm, but it's not fully clear. And I think part of that is because of how badly the dialogue suffers from the way that it's shot and edited.
Yes.
And I think if we had it clearer, we might have a more clear sense of that.
Do you think it's mixed so bad because they shot it all in a swamp and there's a lot of like background noise and they had to like really try to mix it well and they just couldn't do it?
Yeah, it's the same reason that Deliverance sounds the way it does.
It's the same problem.
Yeah, it literally at the time would have been so difficult to capture sound at that location that is not littered with water sounds of them stepping in the water and then like just indigenous like wildlife around, you know, and just sounds you get in the bayou. Like, you can't get clean audio that way.
I do like this film.
If it truly is as, I hate to use the word woke for it, but I want to say referential. If it truly is as referential as it allegedly is.
And like making commentary on how bad it was.
And making commentary, then yes, I can't believe this was made in the 80s. That's crazy amazing.
And I think so because his first draft, it was a play.
Interesting.
Okay. That actually makes sense if you think about it, because you could do all of this on a stage.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and you could do all this on a stage. There wouldn't be as much Tolkien walking. it would be more conversational, and those conversations would be more important and hold more weight.
And you could control the audio, so you could definitely hear all the words.
Control the audio.
Yeah.
And I bet there's more dialogue in the play that gets lost in the movie.
Probably.
Because that always happens play to film. Anyway, Fred Ward gets back and they're like, hey, you got real bullets, right? And he's like, okay, fine. And is pressured into giving them out by Powers Booth, almost slitting his throat.
Yeah, I mean, he does stand up to the sergeant who I've been calling Captain Sobel because he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. But Fred Ward is about to like shoot the sergeant. And that's when Powers Booth comes up and like, Sam the Eagle comes up and like holds that knife to his neck. It's like, give us the bullets, you idiot.
And I agree with him. Like, they should have split the bullets up between everybody.
Fully agree, yes. Just because one person can't shoot at 9 people, but 8 people can hold down 9 people. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have more chance to protect yourself if more people have the bullets.
Right. Although, we will find out, because they are badly trained, it doesn't matter.
Well, for a lot of them, it doesn't matter,
They all waste the bullets.
Yeah, because they panic. The only 2 who don't panic are our Joker and our, Eagle.
Yeah, exactly.
You're talking about Spencer, or Keith Carradine, right? And Powers Booth, yeah.
Yeah. So, night falls, and they've been carrying the body.
Yes.
And so they've dispersed the bullets. They've been carrying the body, which is, of course, slowing them down. Leave the body.
I mean, I would have left the body and marched directly my ass back to base.
Yeah, absolutely.
And been like, hey, our staff sergeant got shot because Stucky's a fucking moron. Can you guys come help us get the body?
Yeah. And so they're playing cards, and there's this whole thing of like, well, how can you play cards with his body over there? And they're like, he's dead. We should have left him. It doesn't matter. Like, this is crazy.
Yeah, that's Sims who was like, how can you do that while he's laying there dead?
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem right.
Sims is like, he's not there. It's just his body.
Yeah.
Well, no, Sims is the one who's saying that. It's Keith Keith Carradine who says, he's dead. He's not going to care. Don't fucking worry about it.
Yeah.
No sex worker for you when we get to base.
But we cut to the next day. They get up and they're walking, and a group of them find a cabin.
Yeah.
Of course, at the cabin, they find
the one-armed man who definitely did it. He killed Richard Kimball's wife.
So when I was writing in my notes after the cabin blew up, I literally wrote in all caps in my notes, "That's for Richard Kimball's wife, you son of a bitch." But the part to me that is so funny about the one-armed man is they aggressively do not try to hide that man has 2 arms. You can very much see that he has an arm tucked in his coat.
Well, he's a famous actor. He's been in a ton of other things.
You mean like the famous 2-armed actor?
Yes.
I think his name is Byron James.
I
think that was him. It is. That is Byron James.
He's from He's in The Hills Have Eyes and all a bunch of stuff.
He's in a ton of stuff.
He is a famous 2-armed man.
Yes.
But they're like, just put him in big jackets and like tuck his left arm inside the jacket. It'll be fine.
Well, and here's the thing. There are good one-armed actors, and there were good one-armed actors at the time.
I'm sure.
I know, because there's one in Twin Peaks not long after this. So, like, you know.
And Byron James did a great job in this, but
also him only having one arm is not a story point.
Exactly. Like, it just seemed like
it's
weird.
Really an odd choice
that they made that choice.
Yeah, because it doesn't impede him or anything.
No.
The one thing I will say is it's very difficult to fire a large gun with one arm, as evidenced in T2 Judgment Day.
Yeah.
As evidenced in this film.
Yeah. So to me, it made it less likely that it was him. I am of the belief that it was not him at all, but he knows the people that it was, and after they blow his house up, it's on. It's fucking on.
I fully agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they do destroy his house, Paige.
Yeah.
Yeah, because essentially they find him, they run back to the group, and they're like, oh my God, we found the guy.
Yeah.
And very wisely, Powers Booth and Keith Carradine are like, are you sure? Are you sure?
Yeah, we don't have any idea. Like, we didn't see them.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, it's this guy.
Yeah, like, this guy who, and again, we saw what they could see, which was fucking nothing. So you have no idea.
This movie basically goes into like, well, I mean, a more modern allegory of like, well, all Cajuns are like this.
Right.
And you can put it in any other group of like, they all look alike and they all are like this and they're all coming to kill us so we can kill them all.
They all look alike. We got to kill some Viet Congs.
Right.
And even though Viet Cong is already plural. Anyway, so they are like, hey, are we sure it's them? Because I didn't see them. I couldn't pick them out of a lineup. I don't know. They're like, well, we'll just go and ask him. right?
Yeah.
And so they all creep up, and is it Sims? Sims is the one who runs and punches him.
No,
yes?
that's Coach.
I couldn't catch. No. Coach is the one who blows up the house.
I know.
No. But Coach doesn't punch him. He goes in after.
They all look alike. Somebody punched him really hard.
Yeah, I thought it was Sims because he freaks out and then he kind of
No,
stands down.
I think it was Coach.
It was Coach.
Is it? No, because they leave Coach behind.
No, Paige, they do leave Coach behind. You see him
Yes.
load his gun, cock it, and
Yes,
then run
yes.
past the advance party. And then,
Yes.
as he's running up, he shoots all of his live ammo
All
just
of his live
into
ammo.
the air like a goddamn idiot.
Yes.
And then
They've already punched him by then. They're holding him and he's bloody.
I don't know who does that. And the Wikipedia does not help us. So we're just going to have to move on.
I remembered it as Sims because he was like, I was so upset about the sergeant. I really liked him or whatever. And then he kind of backs off because he's like, oh shit, I overreacted. So the Cajun man is bleeding and standing there. And they did leave Coach behind because no one trusts Coach. And we didn't know why until this moment. And we will find out because Coach is a reactionary asshole.
Yes.
And so
he has real high school coach energy.
yeah,
Yes.
he loads up his gun.
Yeah.
He runs and he fires off his 2 rounds, which scares the shit out of everybody
Of course.
because they're just like, what? Gunshots? What? And that means he's wasted all of his bullets. So he kind of takes a seat and they're like, why the fuck do you waste your bullets, you idiot? And the rest of them go through and look through the house. And in the house, they find dynamite, guns, ammunition, food,
Yeah.
everything they need for like a supply run that they're just going to steal because they don't view this Cajun man as human.
No, I mean, they
Yeah.
view him as the enemy.
He's the
because,
enemy now, yeah.
I mean, and listen, I don't think he is. He's definitely a victim here. All the Cajun people are. But they do, I don't say ransack, because I don't really think they take a lot, because Coach goes in there
Yes.
and, like, blows it up before they can actually get anything out of it.
Well, that's because the sergeant's like, let's go outside and interrogate the guy. We'll come back and get this stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, they're going to come back and organize and take it later. But as they're doing that, Coach goes in, paints a red cross on his chest.
Like an idiot.
Lights a Molotov cocktail, and tosses it into the house, which makes it explode like a pile of balsa wood.
I gotta be honest with you. If I saw someone I was on the worst church canoe trip with ever walk out of a house that we just discovered with a red cross on their chest holding a Molotov cocktail, I might shoot that person.
100%.
Like, I don't know what he's going to do with that Molly. And he's demonstrated that he is having some sort of mental thing.
Yes.
It's weird. I mean, and it's not because he painted a cross. It's because he painted anything on his chest. Like, that is such a weird thing to do.
It is crazy. And I can't predict that person's future actions, so I can't ensure my safety. If I had live rounds, I might have used one.
I honestly probably would have just started running away, in truth. Like, I don't know that I would have a lot of trouble shooting somebody in general, but...
I don't think I would.
It's like self-preservation, so I'm hoping that would kick in and actually allow me to do it, but...
I don't even think you could run, because I think your 2 layers of jeans would slow you down.
But guys, I am literally the warmest in this bayou, so... Who's laughing now?
Everyone's laughing at you.
Oh, my bad.
I would probably try to shoot a leg or an arm to just like take him down.
Yeah. Hopefully making him drop the Molotov cocktail and like light himself on fire. Love that.
Paige, before you got on this call, I was telling Todd last night, I was so tired that I got home and fell asleep in bed with all the lights on top.
I hate this story.
I was like, I'm just going to feel my bed. And I just like fell asleep with all the lights on, and I'm all in my clothes from like, I had like 2 drinks and came home at like 9:30 and passed out because I had a stressful day. And then Todd's like, save it for the podcast. I want to hear about you sleeping in jeans. And I'm like, it's summer. So I won't touch jeans again until October, unless absolutely necessary.
Yeah, I brought a pair to wear for the show tonight, the 2 shows tonight.
Yeah,
and I'm regretting it. And I might break my own rule and wear shorts on stage. I think I'm gonna wear a dress instead.
I was like, what are you talking about? It was 90 degrees last night. I'm not wearing jeans out of the house.
Jeans, nuts.
I did wear jeans all day for the past 2 days.
What the fuck is
I mean,
wrong
I took
with
them
you?
off when I went to sleep, but like I've been wearing jeans the past 2 days. But I honestly haven't left the house because the first day the police wouldn't let us, and the second day I was just lazy.
I can't wear jeans around the house. That's too uncomfortable.
I wear the jeans around the house.
I only wear pants to doctor's offices and appointments or whatever. I'm not wearing pants in my own home.
I wear pants if I go outside. Yeah.
What is the point of being a landowner?
I started buying lady boxers because that's a new thing.
Nice.
And that's what I wear. That's what I'm wearing right now. And I've been wearing them like walking around the halls of this hotel getting a million things of ice.
I wondered why your camera was off. Yeah.
Yeah. Because my balls are hanging out.
Paige is hanging brain over here.
I'm hanging brain. I'm not going to wear like full pants. You crazy.
I'm wearing pants right now, guys. Full disclosure. I know you can't see my below my waist, but yeah.
I'm wearing boxers and a t-shirt that says Apollo NASA Vision Kubrick Moon Landing Crew.
I love that shirt. And honestly, it's the only believable Kubrick movie.
Is the moon landing?
Yeah.
Why does the flag stand so straight?
Conspiracy theory people are dumb.
But I do love hearing about it.
Oh, they're funny to make fun of, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so he blows up the house and he's like, that'll teach him to fuck with us. And everyone is just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, like that is a huge overreaction. And there were a lot of like resources we could have taken from that to help us out.
Right? Yeah. Like real guns.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now they're literally just kindling around this bayou.
But this is my favorite person going kind of insane in war kind of moment because like everyone's focused on the house blowing up, but he wanders out with like the big red bloody cross on his chest.
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
To our two main characters, they're like, hey, why did you do that? And he's like, don't you get the reference? And they're like, huh.
No,
and he turns to Sweeney. He's like, I thought you definitely would. And you're like, what?
What?
I'm an avenging angel for the sergeant. And we're like, uh-oh.
Well, and he says that second because he talks to one first person and they're like, why'd you do that? And he's like, well, it's part of the joke. And he's like, what joke? And he says, it's a corporal joke, private. And then keeps.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And then the avenging angel thing. It makes no sense.
Nope.
I mean, maybe like a crusader. Like, I don't know. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It was very confusing to me, too. But I mean, it is like, oh shit, this guy is like going crazy.
Yeah, no, if you popped in the guy from Ancient Aliens and was like, see, the Templar cross represents, I'd be like, that makes about as much sense.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you meant like the guy from Ancient Aliens was like another soldier that coach walked up to after he blew it up, and he was like, "Do you get it?" And the Ancient Aliens guys was like, "Yeah, I do get it.
Yes.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, I do.
That's fucking great."
Anyway, he walks away, and Powers Booth is like, "Hey, Keith Carradine, I think that guy is like really crazy, like real nuts, like dangerous." And Keith Carradine's like, I got news for you. We all know and we've known for a while. And that's why they don't give him responsibilities. And he's like, so they just let him come on these things? Like, what? So he still gets to be part of the thing?
Apparently it's slim pickings at this National Guard.
Yes. But as they walk, because we get another Tolkien moment of walking and walking, and so they come up on hanging dead rabbits. I do love that they're just like, what does this mean? To the Cajun guy who just goes, lapin, which is just French for rabbit.
He's like, this is how we survive. It's called hunting and gathering, you idiots.
Yeah. And I do like that they're just letting the skins dry out. Like, what?
Yeah. But there are 8 of them. And there are 8 soldiers, so they read way too much into this.
Yes.
And maybe it is. Like, we never find out if they were doing this or not. And maybe it is, but we don't know.
Yeah, I think they were just hunting.
Me too.
And again, because the Cajun man looks so confused, he's just like, they're rabbits.
I know.
What do you mean? What is this? And he could have been lying to them, but he also could have been like, rabbits? I don't know. But this is where they hear dogs. And they're like, dogs mean hunters. And so they like wait for the dogs, and the dogs immediately attack them. Because if you are one of the Cajun people, these people have shot at you and then blown up a house and kidnapped one of your friends. And that's all you know about them. So of course you send your dogs out. Like, why wouldn't you?
And these are big ass dogs.
They're Rottweilers, man.
Yeah, Rottweilers. Oof.
I love this shot too because like it's clear they're nowhere close to hitting those dogs in these shots.
Yeah.
And it's like sort of funny, but like sort of wholesome in a way. You're like, oh, they actually didn't really want to hurt these dogs when they're shooting them.
Those dogs look fucking vicious, though.
They do. But I mean, they're good little dog actors. It was this shot that like surprised me at the end when they show on screen them killing live pigs.
Oh, yeah.
Because they are clearly trying to like not hurt these dogs as they're doing the scene. As they're like literally in the scene, they're ripping apart these soldiers like limbs.
Yes.
The two of them that they attack, one of which is Powers Booth.
Yeah.
But they eventually beat the dogs off of the soldiers.
Oh,
Let me finish
phrasing.
that sentence. Apologies. Yeah, that just came out that way.
Where were the animal people then?
Anyway, the dogs run away.
Yeah.
They fought the dogs off.
Yes, they fought the dogs off.
Right.
The dogs run away. And at this point, they're like, okay, everyone take 5 minutes to regroup and tend to your wounds and whatever.
Yeah.
And this is where Powers Booth is like, what the fuck's going on? Like, what is happening? And Keith Carradine's like, yeah, I don't know. It's an exercise, and I think we met some weird people, and
yeah, shit's gone south for sure for us.
Yeah. And at this point, I was like, how is there an hour left of this movie? Like, what could possibly happen in an hour?
A lot of the same thing over and over. Because it does really feel like we're walking from one set piece to another.
Yes.
Like, we're walking, okay, here's where the dogs attack. Okay, we're walking, okay, this is where they run into XYZ, right? It's just like that over and over for a long time.
Yeah, and what we run into next is bear traps in the swamp.
That's what it is, yeah.
And this is where they're like, there's only 7 of these. What do they know that we don't? And I was like, I don't know how to set bear traps. Like, what do you mean, what do they know that we don't? Like, do you think that they had time to kill one of you and then only set 7? And like, that they're psychic also? Like, what are you doing?
They may only have 7 bears. I was like, you guys are reading into it. But I guess they weren't.
Well, who knows? We never get confirmation either way.
Well, the only thing we do get is that they have the like spear trap that kills TK Carter.
Which, okay, they're not walking on a path.
Yeah.
Like the fact that he walked directly onto the spear trap blew my mind. Because they're walking like in, I would say, like 6-inch to a foot deep water.
But these are good hunters. So like with the trees and stuff, like they have designed a path where like you're taking a path, you don't even know it. You're like, okay, because most people just travel the path of least resistance.
Sure.
So if they modify it a little bit, they funnel them where they want to go.
Okay.
Like Vietnam.
Yeah. All right.
Well, and at this point, they stop and they bury everybody.
Yeah.
They can only carry so many bodies.
And waste the whole day.
And waste the whole day burying people. And this is where the group starts to divide because Powers Booth and Spencer are like, we don't actually know if this guy is the guy.
Right. Because they still have Byron James with them, the trapper guy, you know? They still have him with them. And his one arm is tied to a rope around his waist.
Yes.
And his other arm is just like hanging freely inside that jacket.
Yes. And then they've just tied him to a tree.
Yeah.
And at this point, Powers Booth and Keith Carradine are like, what if we just let him go?
Yeah. Oh, you mean the guy who literally did nothing and whose house we blew up? Yeah.
Yes. But also, how long are we going to follow Casper, who clearly doesn't know where we're going?
Right.
And also won't let this guy go, like all of it. And so at this point, he suggests that Spencer take charge. And Spencer's like, yeah, nice of you to volunteer me for sedition, essentially.
Yeah.
But so they go to sleep. We get up the next morning, and Powers Booth doesn't see the trapper, the Cajun guy.
Yeah.
And so he follows the sounds of Fred Ward drowning that guy to try and get him to talk. But he's going to kill that guy, like 100%.
Oh, yeah. Powers Booth just walked in on him, killing him more or less.
An attempted murder, yes.
Like, Fred Ward is not trying to interrogate him. The trapper has spoke 0 English up to this point, although I will admit he did nod once when someone spoke English at him.
Yes.
But being able to speak it and sort of generally understanding someone's general body language vibe, like, those are 2 different things. He has not yet revealed he does speak English.
And he's drowning him.
Well, I mean, yeah. But I mean, my point is that Fred Ward is under the impression that he cannot interrogate this guy because of the language barrier.
Yeah.
And his excuse when Powers Booth comes up to him is, I'm going to make this guy talk.
Yeah, what?
And you're like, well, you won't understand him and he won't understand you, Fred Ward. You're clearly just trying to murder this dude. And that's why Powers Booth does the dumbest downgrade of a gunfight ever.
Yes, we have to. I would have just shot his ass.
Me
I've been like,
too.
okay, put that knife away or I'm going to shoot you. And if he was like, what? I would have waited till he took a step forward me and I would have shot him.
Yes.
Yeah. When I saw this, I just heard the West Side Story music.
I know, right? It is very At any point, if everyone else in the regiment started like snapping and like...
Yes, it's West Side Story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, He stabs Fred Ward. Fred Ward dies. So now they waste another half a day burying Fred Ward in the rain.
And Powers Booth got the shit beat out of him.
He did.
He does. Yeah. And Powers Booth is just like, nobody fucking talk to me. If you're going to dig a grave for him, just do it fucking silently. We shouldn't even be doing that, basically.
Yeah.
And they start asking Casper, like, okay, where are we going? And how are we getting there? Like, what is happening? And Casper starts, like, quoting the manual at them, and they're like, you don't fucking know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so half of the group decides to go with Spencer. Sims goes with Casper, but only to ensure, it's Stucky goes with Casper.
Yes.
To ensure that Powers Booth gets court-martialed when they go back for killing Fred Ward.
Yeah.
So they all start walking, and everyone follows Spencer, and then the other two just follow because they're like, we don't want to be alone in the swamp.
Yeah.
Basically. And as they're walking, one of them hears something, but nobody else really hears it.
I mean, but we hear it. I think this is Sims. I don't think Sims is like, he may be losing his mind a little bit. I don't think he's hallucinating the sounds.
He's not hallucinating the sound.
Right.
But he runs through firing bullets and wastes all of his bullets because he doesn't strategically fire them.
Right. He doesn't actually wait till he sees, like, quote unquote, the whites of their eyes, right?
Right.
He's firing just wildly into the woods where he generally hears sound.
Right.
Yeah.
And as they go along the trail, they find all of the dead bodies they just spent all fucking day burying.
Yep.
Dug up and tied to a tree. And that tree falls towards them because this is where the Ents start attacking.
Literally, trees fall perfectly timed for no reason. Like, I get that they could have set those as traps, but there's no one, like, pushing them. There's no rope system we see pulling them down.
None that we see.
Like, yeah. So, like, it's just such a wild thing. It's so funny.
And so they're trapping them with the trees, and the trees kill a few soldiers. But what's really funny to me at this point is we've only met so many soldiers, like only some of them have names, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they just start killing off all the unnamed ones.
Yeah, at this point, we no longer see a soldier that is unnamed.
Right.
I do think digging up the bodies is like a baller move.
Oh,
though.
yeah, dude. Digging up the bodies is dope. That is like that was a scare for me. I was like, oh, shit. That would freak me the fuck out.
Because at this point, because I kept like reviewing the score in my mind of like, okay, they shot at them, they blew up the house, they kidnapped that guy, they tried to kill that guy gets away and goes back to them and tells them what happened. Of course they dig up the body. Like, they are the menace in the swamp right now. Like,
you mean the soldiers are the menace in the swamp right now? Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. Everything is Stucky's fault.
Yes. So they run from the trees. The few of them that survive the trees, they get kind of split up. And this is where Stucky's like, I hear something, and it is a helicopter. They all hear it. They try to wave it down. There's nowhere for it to land.
Yeah.
And so it turns and flies away. And Stucky runs after it, and it immediately falls into quicksand, I guess, or just a bog.
I guess it's a bog because it's the bayou, but it is like, it does have like Artax vibes, you know? Like,
Yeah.
Except no one's trying to save Stucky because Stucky is an idiot.
Yeah.
It's a pitfall of being in the bayou.
Well done. I do love that he dies, and this death, I think, would be probably the worst for me.
It's the one I don't want to have.
Exactly.
Please shoot me instead.
Exactly.
Yes.
I feel like shooting would be faster.
Yes. Yeah.
I guess it depends on where you got shot, but drowning is like a particular fear of mine. Yeah.
And drowning in a bog.
Yeah.
Personally, no thank you.
Ugh, drowning in thick, dirty water.
Yeah,
Ugh.
drowning would be rough.
Ugh. Anyway, Stucky's dead.
Yeah, Stucky's dead. They split up into two groups, and they're supposed to fire blanks so that they know where each other are. And I was like, oh, so just give your positions away all day long?
You would have to, because they ruined their radio when they went crazy and jumped out of the canoes. So, like,
yes.
That's the only way they can do it, but it does 100% give their position away to the people who are trying to defend themselves in their home.
Yes. So they attach their knives onto guns like bayonet, and Casper, as he does this, kind of sees the Cajuns and just runs towards them in slow motion for no reason.
Yeah.
And just gets the, like, if this was a modern day movie, it would have the, like, yeah, behind it as he gets shot multiple times.
Yeah.
And of course, Sims also sees it happen and is like, oh no, and just says, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not supposed to be here. And gets shot also. And that one actually makes me pretty sad.
It does make me sad too, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, the other group is like, I think we should stop shooting because, like, I haven't heard or seen them for a while. We're just giving away our position.
Right.
So, like,
Yeah.
And Mr. Eagle was like, let's just get the fuck out of here. We have to live for ourselves now.
Yeah.
Bring the dog, which is Coach.
Which is Coach. I was going to say, they do have Coach tied up.
They do.
Who has been catatonic for like half the movie at this point.
And did we mention that the trapper guy ran off?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
After Fred Ward died.
Yeah, after Fred Ward died, the trapper was able to get away because obviously Fred Ward and Powers Booth were fighting, and he was like, well, I'm not going to just hang out here.
He does stay to cheer for Powers Booth.
He does,
and then
but he doesn't wait to see the outcome. He leaves.
Like, allez.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, yeah. So Powers Booth and Keith Carradine, this is where Powers Booth is like, no offense, I'm going to fight my way out of here, and I don't care who I have to kill to do it.
Yeah.
And Keith Carradine's like, okay, maybe don't kill me, though. Like, can we go together?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
If you have to kill any of us, kill Coach. He's tied up right here.
Yeah. Well, we cut to the next morning, and at this point in my notes, I just have, how are they not always dead in their sleep? Because they've given their position away so many times.
Did we talk about Spencer's joke about if you die, I'm going to go meet your wife?
Oh, no, we didn't. We should talk about that. Because he asks him, like, how long you've been married. He's like, 5 years. And he's like, are you happy? And he's like, yeah, I like her. She's got a good sense of humor. And Spencer says, I was thinking if you died in this bayou, maybe I'd go look her up. And he's like, I said she had a sense of humor.
Such a good
Not
joke.
me.
It is a great joke. And I also fully do believe that Powers Booth doesn't have a humorous bone left in his body at this point in the movie. Because he doesn't really love the joke.
No, and it's shocking that he can walk with no humoruses.
I mean, he might have been a very funny dude before the events of this movie, but at this point, he is not having it.
Look, Sam the Eagle doesn't make jokes either. And so I think he's a type, you know?
He is a type.
Typecast as a part eagle, part man.
How could you have a sense of humor when your name is Powers Booth?
The bird people do not have senses of humor.
Yeah. Anyway, so they wake up. They're not dead in their sleep, miraculously.
Right.
And they hear a noise, and it's a train because they're like right on the train tracks. So they run over to the train tracks where they find that Coach has been hung. And they do ask, like, because the trapper comes out speaking English.
Yeah.
And just says, hey, I'm not going to kill you if I don't have to. Just stay to the west side. There's a bayou over here. We live on this side. There's a road about a mile up. Just go to it and find it, and we'll leave you alone.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, what about our friend?
So this is what makes me think the trapper wasn't in the initial group.
I don't think so.
Because he doesn't kill them when he clearly could have, and he tells them how to get out of there. Like, he's like,
I think he may or may not have been. He at least is really close friends with the guy in the group.
Sure,
and I think he saw Spencer and Eagle fight for him and try to be good, decent guys.
Yes.
And
yeah.
I think he still killed Coach because Coach blew his house up.
Yes.
Yeah, I sort of get that, though. Wouldn't have made that call myself, but I get it.
Right. And I love this exchange between the three of them.
Me too.
I also think even if he was in the initial group was acting in self-defense.
Yes.
Because, they thought they were being shot at, so they shot back. I understand, So,
Paige, the initial group is acting in self-defense 100% of this movie.
yes, 100%, or at least perceived self-defense.
Yes.
So they start to leave to go find the road a mile up because they're just like, Coach is on his own with his weird joke.
Well, Coach is dead.
Yeah, Coach is dead.
He got benched.
He got benched.
I mean, what really happened is he hung himself or was hung on the train tracks.
No, I think he was hung. He was
Sure.
hung.
I mean, do they confirm that?
They don't confirm that.
Because the one-armed man's like, don't ask any fucking questions, just go.
Yeah. I personally believe, yes, Coach did get killed for, blowing up that guy's house, right?
Yes.
But I don't think they ever actually confirm it. That's my only point.
They don't. They don't officially confirm it, although that is my headcanon.
Yeah, same.
And I like how they're like, Spencer's like, wait, what the fuck is happening? I don't understand what the fuck is happening. And he's like, we live here. You fuck with us, we're going to fucking kill you. And he's like,
yeah.
All right, we'll be heading out.
Yeah, we're going to go head whatever way you tell me is the quickest way out of here and hopefully never see you again. Bye.
Right. And so they make their way to the road where they encounter a pig truck, and the truck picks them up.
Well, it's a truck with a couple of pigs on it. It's not a truck in the shape of a pig which
Sure,
I think was
sure.
big truck.
I do love that when the guy was like, yeah, get in the back with the other pigs.
I mean, that isn't what he says.
No, but that's the vibe of the movie, and I was sort of here for
That
it.
is the vibe of the film.
Yeah.
But they are that couple who buy you a drink across the bar because that woman is interested in Spencer.
Well, you see him dance with her later, right? Or dance
Yeah,
with
I
him
think
later.
that's
No, it's a different lady. It is a different lady.
We all look alike.
All Cajuns look alike, yeah.
But what they do say to them is, no problem, just hop in the back.
Yeah.
So it's very straightforward. But they're like, hey, just take us to the next town. Well, they take them to where they are going with those pigs, which is basically a Cajun cookout.
Yes. Which you would assume, take me to the next town, they can get a phone there, awesome. But if you pull into this town expecting to like find a phone, I would be so disappointed because there's no electricity in this town, it seems like.
There is electricity.
Is there? Okay.
There is electricity. They say, we got the electric lights, we got those phones.
Okay.
And you're like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, he says, we've got electricity, but we don't have any phones yet, but I can take you later, but eat first, have something to drink, and she'll show you where to wash your hands. So thus ensues 18 minutes
Yes.
of them partying with the Cajuns.
It is a lot of partying with the Cajuns.
And no real information in it is just a party.
The only thing you get is Powers Booth is like, we've got to be on guard. These people are going to kill us. And then
Yes.
Spencer being like, let's party. We're safe.
Like, Spencer is very much let his guard down, and Powers Booth is still like at an 11, which
Yeah.
turns out to be he should have been. But
Yeah.
the fact that this takes 18 minutes to tell that story that we just sort of explained in 30 seconds is too long.
Yes.
It feels like they were going to like show what Cajun's life is like and how different it is than
I agree.
The rest of America.
I do think that's what they were doing.
they could have done that in 2 minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
100%.
Exactly. Yes.
Yes.
And I love that stuff because we're getting like a good like Louisiana like barbecue.
The more we saw it, the more we saw of it, the more I was like, shut the fuck up and eat the barbecue.
Yeah.
Like, just like, this sounds awesome.
Honestly, ask for a change of clothes. Ask if anyone
Yes.
can give you a change of clothes and blend the fuck in until you can get out of there.
Yeah, learn some fucking French and play along.
Right. And I think with the allegory, it's just like, oh, look, these people who you think are weird and are killers
yes.
have like families and they're like having fun and they're all about like just, the same things that real America is all about.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're saying. Like the
Mhm.
people who are going after the quote unquote soldiers in this movie, who typically you would like side with as Americans. Like most American movies are not how the soldiers are bad, although there are some of those. But like it's really humanizing the people from the bayou, which I like. It's too long though. Like you can do that in probably 2 minutes to 3
2
minutes.
minutes.
Yeah.
You could do this in 2 to 3 minutes.
Yeah.
But I also think it's overcompensating because we never thought the Bayou people were the bad people.
Well,
Like
I
through
didn't.
this movie.
Like our sensibilities today didn't. I do
That's
wonder
probably true.
if in the 80s, like our parents, when they went and saw this when they were kids, or, even their parents going to see it, like if they were like, oh shit, maybe the soldiers are the bad guys,
I saw a movie just like this last week, The Covenant, with Jake Gyllenhaal, where he spends some
Oh, yeah.
times with the Afghanistan translator. He's like, we're just alike. It's your family. And then it's like the same moment.
Yeah, okay.
But kind of like this. But like, yeah, I think, maybe back then they're like Cajuns because there hasn't been a lot of pop culture Cajuns.
Here's the thing. So the tagline for this movie, I will read it to you now, I think gives us some insight there.
Of course it would. What does it say?
Yeah, so it says, during a routine exercise, a team of National Guards are threatened by angry and violent locals,
Huh.
which points to them as being the aggressor, but they're not.
It does.
And so I think
Fuck.
maybe at the time that's how this was pictured, because us watching it today, we're like, what?
Well,
Like,
and this is post-Deliverance.
Yes.
And I think Deliverance had to influence this film.
Oh,
So it's like,
has to
let's
have.
set the audience up of like, they're the
Yeah.
bad guys, like Deliverance.
Oh, you think the tagline may have been like a misdirect?
maybe.
Uh-huh. And then you get there and you're like, oh, these army dudes are kind of assholes and they're kind of asking for it.
Yeah.
Which I like about
Me
that's the
too.
whole concept that I like about this.
I wonder if
Yeah.
they sort of backed their way into creating a movie that speaks to our generation better than Deliverance does, like
Yeah, maybe.
just through like trying to poke I don't know. That tagline is wild for, I think, the message of the movie.
Yeah.
But maybe Mikey's right. Maybe it's a misdirect.
Maybe, or it's just marketing misunderstanding a movie, which happens all the time.
I have never, as a marketer, misunderstood what I was trying to do, ever.
I feel like most cult classic movies, you can point to marketing not understanding what the movie was about.
Oh, yeah. We fuck up all the time. Like, it happens, man. We try not to. We do our best, but, like, mistakes happen.
I think it was a mystery. I hope it was. Because I think this movie, like, bombs, and I think it's too complicated for the time. You know what I mean?
Anyway, we see them kill pigs live. Hate that. So they see the people they've been running from show up in canoes. Yeah. And Powers Booth is like, oh, this is not good. So he steals a knife. He goes into like a storage shed area. And as he's doing that, Spencer kind of is like, wait a second. Something's not right. So he comes out too.
The scariest part is when he goes to like the edge of the town and the guy just like pops out with the gun.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that hasn't happened yet.
Oh, okay. Sorry. This whole 18-minute sequence gets
it's 18 minutes of nothing and then 2 minutes of everything.
Yeah.
Just like Night with Me.
Oh, God.
It's a lot of Mikey playing his banjo and not, doing what he should be doing.
4 strings is an average amount of strings.
They're girthy strings, guys.
Thick strings.
I love that you knew enough to know a banjo has 4 strings. I love it. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, everybody.
Look at you. It's like me when I talk about like football rules. People are like, wait, what? He knows what he's talking about?
What?
I have like a cursory knowledge of many subjects to make weird jokes, but then once you go beyond that, I don't know shit.
That's how I feel about football. Like, I know enough to know how to sound like I know what I'm talking about, but I do not.
So Powers Booth goes to kind of the edge of the Cajun town, and one of the guys pops out behind a tree.
Orbs out.
He does ominously step out. Like, he steps out in a way that made me think he could see through that tree because he had eye contact with Powers Booth before he stepped out.
Yes, and I do think, here's my headcanon, they did not go far enough to the road to get out of where they're supposed to be.
I think so, too.
No, I think they went to the dirt road, and when the trapper was talking about it, he was like, keep going, there's a paved road, you want that one. You want the highway, clearly not a dirt road.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they are where they're not supposed to be.
Right.
And so that guy chases down Powers Booth, and that's what it is. He runs into like the storage area, and then that guy kind of follows him and shoots him.
In the shoulder, yeah.
In the shoulder. As he's about to shoot him in the head, Spencer comes up behind him and kind of hits him with his gun and chokes him out.
Well, he fires his blanks.
He
fires his blanks at him because he doesn't have live rounds. But it does.
That's what it
does like jar the guy who's trying to kill Powers Booth because someone is shooting a gun at him. It just has blanks in it. I would be freaking out too.
But then, hold on now, he gets gutted like the pig in the dick.
Yeah, he gets stabbed because Powers Booth in that time takes his bayonet and stabs him in the dick with it.
Yeah, stabs him in the dick. And then this exchanges when the others come in, and that's when Powers Booth strangles a guy to stop him from shooting Spencer.
I do love how like this all transpires while like the cookout is happening. They're playing banjo and guitar and singing, and
they keep cutting back and forth to it.
Yeah, and they keep cutting back and forth. Like, if they would have heard those gunshots, and I do think that would have alerted them something not great was going on.
And not only that, this is in my notes. I have like, just fucking finish it already. Because the more it cuts back and forth, the longer it takes. And I'm like, I don't fucking care. I have seen the banjos. I've seen the dancing. I've seen the food. I know what's happening.
Yeah.
I don't need to continue to see it. Like, I know. I have that information.
And Paige, we didn't need to see the pigs killed live on camera to understand that those pigs were going there to be eaten. Right. So, like, had you just cut from them being on the back of the truck to them hanging, I would have been like, oh, I get it.
And I see what they're trying to do in their like early 80s way where they're cutting to like the nooses they made for the pigs.
Yes. They're building tension. Powers Booth is thinking, oh my God, they're going to hang us. And of course they're not. They're there for the pigs. The pigs are right there. They're like right next to it.
Well, for a minute I was like, they're going to hang them in public square.
I knew they weren't because it wasn't the two guys that had actually been hunting the soldiers in the canoe.
Right, exactly.
It was the other people at the party who were just like there to have a good time and have a cookout.
Yeah. And it was like all of that stuff where I'm just like, I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen 18 minutes of it.
We just don't need it.
I don't need more of it.
You could build all that tension in 3 minutes and it doesn't feel like redundant. I think that's why I didn't like the end of the movie because it just felt so redundant.
Yes, perfect example, the raptors in Jurassic Park.
Yes.
That scene's only like 2 minutes long.
Exactly. But man, it's built the tension up so much that when the T-Rex comes in and gets him,
Yes.
which is, I guess, Spencer coming in with his gun shooting blanks, like that moment pays off just as much as this one does and takes...
More so, I would say.
Yeah, it takes 20% of the time to get there.
Yeah, exactly. So they've now killed everyone that's after them. They walk back out into the swamp. They see a helicopter. They follow it. And then for no fucking reason at all, the last 2.5 minutes of this movie are in slow fucking motion.
Yeah. And it sounds like it. The helicopter sound effect slows and sort of warps.
Yeah, and it like cuts to the army stuff.
To try to build more tension, I guess.
For what? For fucking what? It's the end of the movie. I don't know.
I don't know. I do not know. They should have just walked. That truck would have been there and it would have been done.
Yeah, but it does stop on the star that's on the side of the truck. Like it freeze frames. And that's the movie. So having seen the movie, having talked about the movie, what did you guys think about Southern Comfort?
I'm glad we were able to discuss it. It's one of like my hidden classic horror films that no one's ever seen, and I may have designed this whole month around it.
I do think people should see it, but I don't think many people have seen it. Like, I'm glad we're doing an episode on it because I do think it deserves way more credit than it gets.
I feel in a really cool position being a part of this team that I get to show y'all and then other people this movie that I grew up and really liked, this horror movie that I thought was interesting that no one's really heard of.
Yeah. Well, and I do think it's interesting. I do hope that they intend it to be, I think, a good we're watching the villains the whole time and the Bayou guys did nothing wrong, that kind of thing. I do hope that was their intent because that's what comes across to me now with today's sensibilities.
Hey guys, the director explicitly stated that he doesn't think it's an allegory for the Vietnam War.
Well, he's an idiot.
Well, I definitely disagree with the guy who created this.
I just pulled up fun facts and I was like, shit. Oh no.
I mean, that's fine. It definitely plays that way today, though.
I'm going to read a direct quote. So this is from Walter Hill, the director of the film. He says, "This is our story, and we were aware that people were going to see it as a metaphor for Vietnam.
Okay.
And the day that we had the cast read before we went into the swamps, I told everybody, quote, people are going to say this is about Vietnam. They can say whatever they want, but I don't want to hear another word about it. End quote." He does not think this is about Vietnam, which is wild.
It's so hard to believe that.
That he said it, dude.
No, yeah. I realize he said that, but it is. Well, that's the thing about art. So
I agree with you.
Let me say this. I am very loosey-goosey when it comes to art opinions. Everyone's going to have a reaction a different way. And this movie fully, to me, is about the Vietnam War. If the director doesn't think that, that's cool. But that's the way his creation spoke to me.
And I don't know if they stumbled on it or not, but I think the only people who like it see it for what it is. But you know what? That's even more of an allegory for Vietnam with the guy in control of this, thinking that this is a glorious reading.
Thinking that it's not it. I guess to me that means that no, it was not. They were not being referential with the racial undertones of the film.
I know, and that hurts.
That's a bummer.
Yeah, that's a real bummer, honestly. Yeah.
That sucks a lot.
Well, I mean, Paige, we're sort of in fun facts. Do you want to just jump into fun facts? Well, Paige, hit us with more fun facts. Some more fun facts.
Not Vietnam fun facts. Yeah, so Walter Hill doesn't think this is about Vietnam.
Fully disagree with you.
And he's the one who made it. I know. That's wild to me.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting sometimes when people make art and everyone reads it one way and then the artist is like, that's not what I intended at all. I think a great example of this is Fight Club, where people don't realize that it's written by a gay man about toxic masculinity. And there's so many dudes who are just like, dude, Tyler Durden's the fucking best. Just don't understand it at all.
Yeah, dudes misunderstand Fight Club more than women misunderstand Midsommar.
Yeah.
That's why I say Fight Club and Midsommar are the same movie, but for different sexes or genders or whatever.
Yeah, because I don't think that's an inaccurate comparison. I do think that there are ways to enjoy both of them while...
I like both of those movies.
Yeah. And being like, hey, I get that this is, a lot of people read this one way and maybe not so much. And I think you can still enjoy it despite that and still understand that, I feel some catharsis even though this is problematic. I think those are all valid things to feel, but the intention behind may be different, which is clearly the case here, which is wild. But that's so crazy to me. Now, also according to Walter Hill, no studio wanted to make this movie, but an independent producer who had a relationship with 20th Century Fox financed it and pushed to have them release it eventually.
Interesting. Okay.
Anyway, the production shoot for this movie was 9 weeks, with them working 6-day weeks, and it was shot in Cato Lake in Texas, which, good God, as someone who is in Texas right now, no.
And Paige, you've been there for 9 weeks exactly today, right? Like that was the plan?
I've barely been here 9 hours,
No,
and I'm
I know.
ready to go home.
I know. And you're in a fancy hotel with shitty internet, but a fancy hotel. They were in like the bayou for 9 weeks. Like I realize this is a movie, but they were still there on set.
Yes.
Or in a town close by. Like Jesus.
Yeah. Now, according to Walter Hill also, he views Keith Carradine's character and Powers Booth characters as different types that find common ground. First and foremost, Keith Carradine's character, he believes, is someone who is naturally graceful and confident and can always separate himself from groupthink.
So he's like skeptical?
He's skeptical, but he's also kind of a class clown. He's an independent thinker, is what he's kind of getting at. Whereas he views Powers Booth's character as rational and hardworking and truly a self-made individual, and in doing so, objects to the irrationality of the group.
Yeah, I could see that.
He can't believe that people are being so irrational, whereas Keith Carradine can, but understands, he's like, oh, I get why they're doing this. It's stupid and we're not going to do it, but I understand people in a way that makes me understand why they would do this.
He's like, I get why this is happening, but this is definitely going to get us killed, so let's avoid these people.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so now, in an interview, and I don't know how true this is, because we have a lot of quotes from Walter Hill, but that's one version of story.
Sure.
Anyways,
Gotcha.
So he and David Giler had a deal with Fox where they were supposed to acquire and develop commercial scripts that could be easily and cheaply produced. They acquired Alien, the original Alien, and Southern Comfort as the play.
Ah, okay.
Now, Alien goes on to have its own story of development that's not really related to this.
Yeah.
But they decide to produce Southern Comfort, and this is the one he chooses to work on. They also, they had already done a movie called Hard Times in 1975, which is set in Louisiana also. And so he wanted to kind of do another one. Anyway, Powers Booth was cast after they saw him play Jim Jones in a television miniseries.
No shit.
And now, notably, a very difficult to find miniseries, but it's called Guyana Tragedy, The Story of Jim Jones from 1980. I would encourage you not to view Jonestown material produced before, I don't know, the 90s, because people did not fully understand what had happened right after, and they had not listened to the tapes. And I think the tapes are a super important part of the Jonestown story. A lot of people viewed it as a mass suicide when it is, in actuality, I would say a mass murder.
It is. It was reported as a mass suicide. Like that's the way the news handled it.
Yes.
Back when it happened. But it was, Paige, you're absolutely right. And if you hear those tapes, you know it is. There's no doubt that it is mass murder.
Yes.
Dude, those tapes are probably the scariest thing I've ever listened to.
Yes. Now, Walter Hill and Keith Carradine would go on to work on a number of other things, namely Deadwood in 2004.
Fuck, yeah, he's not in Deadwood a lot, but he plays a very important character in the first season.
Yeah. Now, Walter Hill's conversations about this movie and the point of this movie are very interesting. We've talked about a couple of them already. He acknowledges that it is the fault of our main characters for getting into the group, but he views it more as, he uses the phrase, individuals who are not as highly evolved as others. So he views this as there are some of the men who are smarter, some have more empathy, some have different innate characteristics that make them respond differently. So he views this as almost like a bottle episode of like, how do all these different people interact with each other? I think using the phrase evolved differently is problematic.
Yeah.
I think that's a poor choice of words, because what he does come around to saying in this interview is none of us are quite as good or as bad as we construct us and each other to be. And I think that is actually a very valid and interesting way to look at this movie, of just like, who's good, who's bad, from whose point of view. And I think he gets bogged down in the weird, where he's like, the brute level of their response. And I'm like, dude, like, All you had to say was we facing, and it's fine. Anyway, so the co-screenwriter and director first, and that is Walter Hill, by the way.
Okay.
He first wrote this script for the movie in 1976. About 5 years before. Yeah.
Interesting.
But I also, and clearly, because we kind of talked about this with the tagline for this movie, people misunderstood this movie at the time. Very much so. In part because a number of other movies in the 80s come out with Cajuns as the villains.
Yeah.
Like, after this movie. Again, completely misunderstanding what happens in this movie and, you know, what this is about. It's so strange to me. But people have also called this movie a collective hero movie with 9 people acting as one. And I'm like, they're not the heroes.
Wait, what? Really?
What? No.
Yes.
No. People have such wildly different interpretations of art. It's great.
Yeah, no, also, Walter Hill also worked on The Warriors, another movie with strange allegiances and multiple groups working together.
Yes. The Warriors is a wild movie, though.
It's a wild movie.
I love The Warriors.
Now, 20th Century Fox actually hired a writer to do an in-between draft that Walter Hill then rewrote. That's why he's credited as a co-writer. But they had also acquired the original source material. Anyway.
Okay.
So the title font and promotional design of the logo for the movie had to be changed so that it was different than the Southern Comfort liquor brand design logo.
Yeah.
It's interesting they even went with that name because Southern Comfort was a thing. You know, it was a thing at the time.
Yes.
So it's interesting they even went with that name. Although I think trademark-wise you're allowed to because one's a liquor and one's a movie. You know?
Yes, exactly.
The public won't confuse the two. But like still,
Right.
I think it's wild they decided to do that.
Yeah, well, Southern Comfort is a phrase. You know, like that's why the liquor's named that way. And so I think they were drawing on a collective understanding of that phrase.
Same.
But anyway, those are your fun facts.
Well, thank you for those fun facts. Let's talk a little bit about box office. So what do you think the production budget was for Southern Comfort in 1981?
Not much. I'm going to say 5.
Yeah, privately funded, I'm going to say 81. I'm going to actually say 1 million.
Okay. It was actually $7.6 million.
Jeez.
Which I buy because of where they are. I buy that because it would be so difficult to shoot this movie where they are.
And some of these people are decently big names at the time, right?
I do think they have a decent cast. Yeah, absolutely. But if you convert that to today's dollars, that is $25.4 million today. Now, this movie was released on September 25th, 1981. This movie was 16th that weekend out of 18 movies that were in theaters at the time. Now, I will say this, it was only in 17 theaters, so it didn't get a nationwide release. But to give you some perspective on what movies were out at the time, and again, that is their release week of September 25th, 1981, Mommy Dearest was number 1. Number 2 was Only When I Laugh. Number 3 was So Fine. Number 4 was Arthur. And number 5 was Body Heat. But also on the list was like Raiders of the Lost Ark, An American Werewolf in London that we've done. So a lot of big movies came out this year. Chariots of Fire. Anyway, so Southern Comfort was 16th. What do you think it made that weekend? And again, it was only in 17 theaters.
$200,000.
Okay, Mikey, what do you think?
500,000.
Paige is closer. It was $116.9 thousand. The next week, it was only in 15 theaters and didn't do quite as well. But it eventually did get put into more theaters. In fact, the last week it was in theaters was November 6th of 81, and it was in 450 theaters and actually made the most money in its last week in theaters. So it had a very weird release. I think whoever released this movie either didn't have the connections they thought they had to get in a nationwide release or just simply couldn't afford to do a nationwide release, but it just didn't catch like they wanted it to, I think. But what do you think it made domestically at the box office in 81?
81, I'm going to say 900,000.
Okay.
Let's say 2 million.
Mikey, you're closer, although it was almost 3 million. It was $2.9 million in the domestic box office, which if you adjust for inflation would be $9.8 million today. But as we mentioned before, the budget was $7.9 million. So this definitely did not make money at all, unfortunately. Because I do think it is, I mean, if you're comparing this to Deliverance, I think I prefer this to Deliverance.
I still prefer Deliverance. I think it's shot more interestingly, and it has the same pacing problems.
It does, yeah. I think Deliverance is just a prettier location. I think this, I think, has a slightly better story. But Paige, I think for the reasons you're saying you like Deliverance, like I get why you like it better. Like it's just a matter of opinion, really.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing: I like the allegorical parts of this movie.
Me
but
too.
if that truly was not the intention,
I know, and that
that's not
breaks
what the
my
movie
heart,
about,
man. Like
that ruins it for
I
me.
refuse that. I mean, like, even the reviews at the time, because I like was Googling reviews, are like, this is an allegory for...
The guy who made it says it's not.
It's just too, it's too surface level. It's just too surface level for them not to... You can't accidentally make one that black and white allegory.
I mean, you can. Like, I think this guy did. Like,
I don't think so.
Him being like, no, this isn't about that, makes me think that a lot of the things that I gave it credit for didn't deserve that credit. And so, yeah.
Do you have that quote? Will you read his quote again about that?
There's multiple. He has multiple quotes. It's not just one.
Okay.
It is multiple interviews where he's like, it's not this.
Okay. Disagree with you, guy who created this movie. So, like, but yeah, no, I mean, it does sort of break my heart that he doesn't understand the message he is clearly, I think, showing. Although that does bring me to another little, I'm going to say a little caveat fun fact, because I stumbled across this while I was looking for budget, because with older movies, sometimes I have to dig a little bit deeper and I come across some interesting stuff. So because of Iranian censorship at the time, they changed the story and the title of this movie, but released it in Iran. And it was not until the late 1980s, this was released in Iran under the name Operation Lagoon.
That actually works really well.
I know, right? The film was shortened to 95 minutes, which I think might have fixed a lot of the problems that we had with it. And the story was changed. So in the Iranian version, a group of U.S. military soldiers who were like sort of being punished for opposing the Vietnam War were sent on a mission amongst manhunters. So the Cajun people aren't Cajun necessarily. They're like manhunters.
It's like the most dangerous game.
Yes.
Like that's completely different.
Yes, I think they don't know at the time they were only given blanks. So they think they're going with, to fight these manhunters, but they were given blanks. And the soldiers are killed by the manhunters one after another as planned by the U.S. So it's like the U.S. sent them to do this to kill these people for being opposed to the Vietnam War. And at the end, when Powers Booth and Keith Carradine are like walking out, I think that's one of the reasons they use that shot at the end, and it slows down and just shows the truck. But over that pause, you hear like something that indicates those two were killed. You don't see it on screen, but it does come off that they don't survive the movie. And the film was a huge hit among an Iranian audience.
Interesting.
So it was purchased for distribution by a TV company. So I'm assuming it actually hit their TV, not theaters. So I don't have any like box office information for the Iranian release, but I thought it was interesting enough to mention.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, but that is your box office information. So, Mikey, do you want to hit us with that scary scale?
Yeah, scary scale listeners. A scale of 1 to 10 of how scary we found the film when we watched it today. Our 1 example is Ghostbusters, and our 10 example is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Paige.
This is a 1.
Todd.
Yeah, it's a 1 for me as well.
1 for me as well. And that's our scary scale.
Yeah. All right, so this week, you made us watch, Mikey, Southern Comfort. So what are we doing next week?
Let's get back to basics here.
Okay.
Paige and I have discussed this. We want to do this third Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. I want to get to the new one.
I can't believe they made 3 of these.
There's so many of these.
Way more than 3. And this one is Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3.
Wait, really? When did this come out? Hang on.
1990.
Oh, okay. So this is like out of the 70s and early 80s then. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like we're not going to get as much chainsaw dancing, but,
we're going to have to go through a few bad ones to get back to the good ones.
In my opinion, the only bad one is the first one.
Yeah, because 2 is a classic.
2 is amazing.
We have to get through some of the like direct-to-video sequels so we can go back to like Jessica Biel's remake, and then we can go to the one that came out like last year.
Oh, shit. I'm actually just reading up on Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, and it was initially given an X rating. So, hell yeah.
And it's only 1 hour and 26 minutes long.
Yeah.
So your homework for next week is to try and find out why Leatherface should have had an X rating and enjoy our episode on it. So, Mikey, do you have a review for us to read?
Oh, I actually forgot that part.
Well, while you're looking one up, let me tell them how they can have their review run on the podcast, and that's to leave us a 5-star text review, and we'll have Mikey read it for you. So, Mikey, whose review are you going to read this week?
I'm going to say A. Jacqueline.
All right, what does A. Jacqueline have to say?
They say role-playing for the win. Love so much about this team and their community, from Todd's fearful starting point for the show to Paige's research and recaps to the tongue-tangled character Mikey likes to play.
Tongue-tangled is accurate, and you are not playing a character.
No,
yeah,
I don't.
This is very accurate.
They are so good together. For example,
oh no,
in the Burning episode, one of my favorite episodes.
Oh.
Personally, Mikey talking.
The one where that guy's nut came out.
Yeah. The team discusses the similarities and the differences between the Mad Men, also released in 81. Mikey's
Hang on, is this a review or a dissertation about our podcast?
Shut up, Todd.
Okay, I'm sorry. Hey, Jacqueline, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Mikey's portrayal of the teenage lechergy,
Lechery.
Lechery and stupidity, what are condoms, quote unquote, spell out the cultural zeitgeist of the time period.
Oh, yeah, that was definitely Mikey being ironic and not Mikey really asking the question, what are condoms?
It was the year of Friday the 13th, produced by Miramax. This podcast proves we can still love trashy movies, even if terrible people or situations contributed to them. Thank you, Horror Virgin, 5 stars.
Well, thank you, A. Jacqueline, for that awesome 5-star review. And if you want to have Mikey read your 5-star review, leave us a 5-star review. I also want to start doing something that we'll start with this episode, and that is you can now leave comments on Spotify under our episodes. So I'm going to read one that came up on the Mist, and that would be from Lindsay, who said, I would pay a lot of money for a horror-themed Scott Stapp cover album, which I found very funny because Paige and I sing a parody to Higher about having crab rangoon armor.
Can you make me frightened?
Anyway, Lindsay, thank you so much. I also want a Scott Stapp horror cover album. So if you want to have me read one of your Spotify comments, leave us a Spotify comment and a 5-star rating while you're there. So guys, if you like this show but want to hear this power throuple on another movie review show about romance and romantic comedies, check out Romancing the Pod, where Mikey, Paige, and I break down and make fun of romantic movies. It's a lot of fun, guys. Check it out. If you want to follow us on social, please do. We are at Horror Virgin or online at horrorvirgin.com. If you want to follow us all individually, you can do that as well. Paige is at Paige Wesley on Twitter or Rampage Wesley everywhere else, including TikTok. Mikey is at mrandolph24 and I am at Todd J. Awesome. If you like the show so much and you want to help financially support it, please do by going to patreon.com/horrorvirgin, where you can get a lot of great levels and a lot of great stuff like bonus episodes, director's cut episodes where they're a little bit longer and you get them actually a day earlier than the regular feed drop. We do a lot of great things like listener requests and stuff like that. So guys, check out the Patreon and help support the show.
If you want to financially support me, but not Todd, just look me up on Venmo.
If you can't financially support the show, that's understandable. That's fine. But if you want to hang out with us on the daily, join the Facebook group at facebook.com/group/horrorvirgin. We also link it like once a week. So just find it there and join the awesome Facebook group. Literally, we're in there talking every day. It's awesome. And guys, we got a P.O. box. So if you want to send us some love letters or whatever you might send to a P.O. box, it's actually not a P.O. box. It's like a regular street address. It's pretty awesome. It's 6688 Nolensville Road, number 108-34, Brentwood, Tennessee 37027. So send us some stuff.
Yeah.
And if you want to check out our Twitch stream, we're at twitch.tv/ToddAwesome, where we will be playing horror video games. So if you have always wondered what it would be like to watch me get scared, you can now do that on Twitch while I play these horror games. It's twitch.tv/ToddAwesome, guys. Check it out. It's a lot of fun for you. Not a lot of fun for me. This episode was brought to you by Tia, and Tia's teenager's been like driving her crazy. So how is Tia's teenager driving her crazy this week?
She makes allegories for Vietnam and then like acts like they're not.
Oh my God, that would drive me crazy as well, Tia. Tell your teenager to stop trying to lie about what they created. Anyway, this episode also brought to you by Jonathan, and Jonathan wants me to make you guys watch some videos. So I'm going to steal your screens and make you watch this video he just sent me. This is a 10-year-old playing Enter Sandman with the Foo Fighters live in concert. It's actually pretty dope.
Shit.
But like he's actually playing guitar and like he's actually like walking around on stage like he's doing good crowd work too. Like for a 10-year-old, you know?
When I saw Green Day live, they pulled people out of the audience.
Yeah.
And have them play with the band, and then they give them the guitar at the end. It's fucking rad.
That is amazing. I would lose my mind if Trey Cool pulled me up on stage and I got to play When I Come Around with Green Day. Or like play with the Foo Fighters. If I got to play Generator with the Foo Fighters, I'd lose my fucking mind.
Yeah. Well, and they pull them up and like ask them what they can play too. So like they kind of get to choose a little bit, which is wild.
I do love that like aging rockers and punk musicians are becoming more like live karaoke bands as they get older. Here for it. That's awesome. But Jonathan, thank you so much for sharing that video with us, and thank you so much for the support. We now return you to another episode of The Patreonicals.
Okay, we've established a new kingdom in the fairy tale kingdom world.
We have. Do you know the name of said kingdom? This is not a test, Mikey. I actually don't think you made one up.
Okay, yeah, all right. Let's do it now.
Yeah.
Libby, Queen Libby of the fairy kingdom.
Is that what it's going to be? The fairy kingdom?
It's got to be easy to remember.
That is true. You are notoriously unable to remember things.
The fairy tale kingdom, yes. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I'm the queen now. Who's going to like be my peeps? And then Isaac in his Black Knight armor was like, I will be one of your Black Knights, but I want to eat some of these fairy creatures.
I don't know if you're allowed to eat fairy creatures in Fairlandia.
And she's like, done. You're one of my knights now.
Okay.
Boom.
All right. I do love how she was just like, okay, I was a queen on the moon, so I'm definitely a queen here. Everyone has to like bow to my authority. And everyone's just like, you know what? That's fair.
Yeah.
She has the most experience in queening.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Karoon and Natasha were like, we would like one of the towers on the castle to live in, and we'll help you run the place or whatever. And they're like, done. And they're like, cool. And then like, do you think there's blue fairy creatures? And she's like, we'll look for them.
Why specifically blue, Mikey?
Because Natasha and Karoon are blue aliens.
Exactly.
That you.
No, I was saying that so the listeners could get that context, Mikey.
Oh, okay, I got you.
It's called being a producer.
I don't really feel like we need to overproduce this segment. Would you start throwing in sound effects if you're going to go all the way with this?
Mikey, I do that. I know you don't listen, but I do that.
On Patreonicals?
Oh, no.
That's what I'm talking just Patreonicals.
Mikey, full disclosure, the only thing I do in the Patreonicals is close up your gaps when you're like thinking of the thing to say. Like, I just close that up.
Gotcha. Okay,
Yeah.
Well, Kate's also like, I'll use my psychic powers here. Like
Nice.
there's dragons and scary shit out there. Let's all just stick together and try to survive this. Driscoll in his Iron Man suit is like, fine, let's do that. And then Wes, Prince Charming.
Ooh.
Now. He's like, hello. He's like, talks really cocky. And he talks to Erin, who's the good witch, and he's like,
Galinda, yeah.
What about, I need a princess out there. And she's like, there is one. Vexen Avery.
She's asleep.
She is asleep in a tower out there being guarded by bad, evil creatures, and we have to get her. And he's like, whoa, I don't know about that. So they may have a thing. Boezy and Allie just fucking in the moat, you know? She's full mermaid in the moat. They're like, he's Florida manning it. She reminds him of a manatee.
Wait. Are they fucking in the moat or are they fucking in the moat?
Both.
Okay.
Jeremy with his laser eyes is like, I want to be a knight or whatever because I can shoot lasers. And Queen's like, yeah, of course, you're in.
We're never letting you out of my sight again.
Lauren, the cave person's like, I could be at the fourth night, I think, is the number of nights we are on here. And they're like, yeah, of course. Mr. Ragemon, what do you think? And he's like, I just want to shoot fireworks above the castle like Disney World every night and day.
Love that for him.
And they're like, you're in. Come on.
Yeah.
Sunzi, the Tin Man, they're like, Sunzi, go out there and look for the Vixen person and come back and tell us where it is. You're expendable. No one likes the Tin Man. Go do it. And he's like, okay. Rivermoon the witch, the bad witch. She's like, I'm going to go with Sunzi, the Tin Man, and definitely not do evil things.
Oh, I want to do evil things with you.
Madeline, the jester of court, she goes to Jay's pack and pulls out puppets and starts doing a puppet show, and everybody hates it.
You know, because it's realistic.
Mm-hmm. James Airy, he's like the white knight. He's got the shining. He's on the white horse. He pulls his sword, Sexcalibur.
Heck yeah.
And it says, "We're here to be the best knights." And they're like, all right. Okay, well, we know that this vixen lady is a maiden in distress. And if you guys want to go out there, it's crazy out there. Like, it's a fairy tale world. Everything's really bad in the fairy tales.
Right.
And yeah. And, but some of you guys stay here to guard this castle because we got to keep it up and be safe. And they're like, okay, we're going to figure that out next episode. And so, like, then the episode ends. Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we'll have to wait to find out what happens next week on another episode of the Patreonicals.
That's going to be it for us, you guys. I'm Paige.
I'm Mikey.
And I'm Todd.
Keep it ookie spooky.
Yeah.
Have a great week.
Bye. Stuck in the bayou, nerds.